He called his pregnant wife weak in front of a room full of powerful men. By morning, her wedding rings were on his pillow, and she was gone. Caleb Maddox ruled Philadelphia like a king with judges in his pocket, senators at his table, and enemies too afraid to speak his name. But inside his glass penthouse, the one woman who loved him was slowly disappearing. Mara had carried his child in silence, hidden her pain behind perfect dresses, and waited for the man she married to look at her again. This story is not just about betrayal. It is about the moment power becomes worthless when a man realizes too late that the empire he built cost him his family. Stay until the end because some truths only arrive after everything has already burned. Like this video and comment where you're watching from. Before Caleb Maddox ever found those rings on his pillow, before the ultrasound photo split his world in half, before the silence of his penthouse became louder than gunfire, there had been another silence, a slower one, a quieter one, the kind that moved into a marriage without knocking and stayed long enough to feel like furniture. It lived in the long glass hallway of their penthouse above Rittenhouse Square. It sat at the end of the dining table where Mara Ellis Maddox ate alone beneath a chandelier Caleb had bought in Milan and never once looked at after it was installed. It waited beside her in bed at 2 in the morning while the city glittered below and the elevator finally opened, carrying home the man everyone in Philadelphia feared and the woman who loved him could barely reach. Caleb Maddox was 39 years old, and there were men twice his age who lowered their voices when they said his name. In daylight, he was the polished head of Maddox Harbor Group, a shipping and logistics empire that handled freight along the Delaware River warehouse contracts near the Navy Yard, private security for construction sites, and enough political donations to make City Hall smile whenever his lawyers entered a room. At night, the story changed. At night, men who owed him money paid faster. Businesses that refused his protection found their storefront windows broken before sunrise. Cargo containers moved without inspection. Judges got invited to private dinners. Councilmen received campaign checks from companies with names that existed only on paper. The police department did not look away from Caleb Maddox because he threatened them. They looked away because half of them had mortgages paid through favors they could never admit to. He did not shout. He did not need to. Caleb had inherited pieces of an old criminal kingdom from his father, Patrick Maddox, but he had turned those pieces into something cleaner, sharper, and harder to touch. His father had ruled with fists and fear. Caleb ruled with paperwork, silence, and men in expensive coats who never appeared on security cameras. He looked like power even when he stood still. 6'2", dark hair that always looked slightly wind-touched, though no weather ever reached him unless he allowed it. A jaw carved by discipline, eyes the color of storm clouds over black water. Caleb could sit across from a senator, a priest, or a murderer and make each man feel equally exposed. People called him controlled. Mara once called him lonely. That had been before the marriage became a hallway she walked alone. She had met him 5 years earlier at a charity auction held inside the Philadelphia Museum of Art. She had not known who he truly was then, not all of it. She knew the name Maddox carried weight. Everyone in the city knew that. But Caleb had found her standing near a painting of a woman looking out a window, and instead of asking what she thought of the donors or the champagne or the absurd price of the artwork, he had asked why she looked sad. Mara had laughed because the question was too direct for a man in a tuxedo. "I'm not sad," she had said. "You are," Caleb replied. "You're just polite about it." She should have walked away. Instead, she told him the truth. Her mother had died that spring, and everyone kept telling her she was handling it beautifully. She hated that word, beautifully, as if grief were a dinner party and she had arranged the flowers well. Caleb had listened. That was the first thing that ruined her. He listened like every word mattered, like the room had gone quiet just for her, like a man with a city beneath his thumb could still care about one woman's broken heart. By the end of that night, Mara had told him more than she meant to. By the end of that month, Caleb knew how she took her coffee, which songs made her cry, why she hated roses but loved wildflowers, and how she smiled when she tried not to smile. By the end of that year, he had proposed on the roof of a private restaurant during a summer rainstorm with the skyline blurred behind him and a diamond ring in his hand. "I don't know how to be simple," he told her. Mara touched his face. I never asked you to be simple. I don't know how to be safe either. Then be honest. For a while he was, or close enough that Mara believed him. Their first months of marriage had been filled with small, stolen tenderness. Caleb leaving meetings early because Mara had a cold. Caleb cooking terrible scrambled eggs at midnight because she mentioned being hungry. Caleb calling her from cars, airports, rooftops, back rooms, anywhere just to hear her voice. The world saw a ruthless man. Mara saw the one who took off his watch before touching her as if even time were too sharp to bring into their bed. Then Patrick Maddox's old enemies began testing the edges of Caleb's rule. A dock foreman disappeared. A warehouse burned near Camden. A federal prosecutor started asking questions about 3 shell companies tied to the harbor expansion. Caleb stopped coming home before midnight. Then before 2. Then sometimes not at all. Mara told herself it was temporary. Power had seasons. She understood that. She had chosen him with open eyes, or at least she thought she had. She knew there were rooms she would never be invited into. She knew Caleb carried secrets the way other men carried wallets. But she had believed there was a line between his empire and their marriage. Vivian Maddox spent 3 years teaching Caleb that there was not. Vivian lived in the family estate outside the city, a stone mansion in Bryn Mawr, with iron gates, white hydrangeas, and security cameras hidden inside antique lanterns. She was 61, though no one would have dared say she looked it. Her hair was pale blonde, swept into a perfect twist. Her suits were cream navy or gray. Her pearls had belonged to women whose portraits still watched from the Maddox dining room walls. She had buried her husband without shedding a tear in public. People called that strength. Vivian called it breeding. She had raised Caleb after Patrick was shot outside a private club in South Philadelphia when Caleb was 22. From that night on, Vivian had treated her son not as a grieving young man, but as the last wall between their family and extinction. She taught him to stand straight at the funeral. She taught him which men to watch. She taught him that mercy was remembered as weakness, and weakness was an invitation. Most of all, she taught him that the Maddox name mattered more than anyone who carried it. Mara never hated Vivian in the beginning. She tried not to. She brought flowers to Sunday dinners. She remembered Vivian's birthday. She asked about Patrick even when Caleb would not. She sat through family stories told like military reports and smiled when Vivian corrected the way she held her wineglass. But Vivian had known from the start that Mara was dangerous, not because Mara wanted power, because she did not. A woman who did not hunger for the Maddox throne could persuade Caleb to stop kneeling before it. That made her a threat. Vivian did not attack all at once. She was too careful for that. She worked in drops. At breakfast she would say, "Caleb looks exhausted, Mara. You must try not to burden him with domestic worries." At dinner she would place a hand over Caleb's and murmur, "Your father never allowed private emotion to distract him from public duty." At gala she would smile at Mara's dress and add soft colors suit soft women. Caleb never noticed the blade because Vivian wrapped every cut in velvet. Mara noticed. At first she answered lightly, then quietly, then not at all. The worst part was not Vivian's cruelty. It was Caleb's absence during it. He would be standing there close enough to touch, yet somehow miles away, reading a message on his phone while his mother carved another piece out of his wife. Mara learned to bleed without making a scene. Then she found out she was pregnant. It was a cold January morning. The city had frozen overnight and the windows of the penthouse were fogged at the edges. Mara sat on the bathroom floor with the test in her hand, wearing one of Caleb's old dress shirts because the silk robe suddenly felt too formal for the rest of her life. 2 pink lines. For a long moment she did not move. Then she laughed. Then she cried. Then she pressed both hands to her stomach, though there was nothing to feel yet, and whispered, "Hello." She called Caleb first. No answer. She called again. No answer. The 3rd time his assistant picked up. "Mrs. Maddox, Mr. Maddox is in a closed meeting. It's important." There was a pause. A careful one. "I can let him know you called." Mara looked at the pregnancy test on the marble floor. "No," she said softly. "Don't interrupt him." She hung up before her voice broke. That night she waited with a white envelope on the kitchen island. Inside was the test wrapped in tissue and a note she had written 3 times before deciding the first version was the least foolish. "You are going to be a father. Caleb came home at 1:27 in the morning with blood on his cuff. Not much, just enough. Mara saw it before he did. What happened? Nothing. Caleb. He looked at her then, and for half a second she saw the man she knew. Tired. Bruised somewhere beneath the skin. Human. Then his phone rang. He checked the screen. Vivian. "Give me a minute," he said. Mara's fingers closed around the envelope. Caleb took the call in his study. The door shut. Mara sat alone in the kitchen until the tea in front of her went cold. The next morning he was gone before she woke. The envelope stayed in the drawer beneath the silverware. Weeks passed. Her body began changing before her life did. Nausea hit her every morning and returned each evening like a cruel visitor. Her favorite foods turned against her. Perfume made her dizzy. The smell of Caleb's cigars clinging to his coat sent her running to the bathroom more than once. She stopped drinking wine at dinners. No one noticed except Vivian. At Sunday lunch in Bryn Mawr, Vivian watched Mara refuse champagne. How unusual, Vivian said. Mara kept her face calm. "I have a headache. You've had many of those lately." Caleb was speaking to Cole Mercer at the far end of the room, his right-hand man and the closest thing he had to a brother. Cole noticed more than most, but even he knew when not to interrupt Caleb in business mode. Vivian leaned closer. "Women in this family are expected to endure discomfort gracefully." Mara looked at her mother-in-law. "I'm enduring more than you know." Vivian's smile thinned. "Then perhaps you should ask yourself why." That night, Mara tried again. Caleb stood in their bedroom removing his cufflinks, his face lit blue by the city beyond the glass. Mara sat on the edge of the bed, one hand resting low on her abdomen beneath the loose fabric of her nightgown. "I went to the doctor today." Caleb glanced at her through the mirror. "Are you sick?" The question was correct. The tone was not. It sounded like another problem arriving at the end of a long day. Mara swallowed. "I need to tell you something." His phone vibrated against the dresser. He looked down. His expression sharpened. "Not now." "It matters, Caleb. So does this." He answered. Mara sat very still while he spoke in clipped phrases about a shipment delay, a customs officer, a man named Nicky, who had apparently forgotten who owned which pier. When he ended the call, his attention was already somewhere else. "I have to go. At midnight I won't be long. You always say that." That stopped him. Caleb turned from the dresser. For the first time in days, maybe weeks, his eyes settled fully on her. "What does that mean?" Mara almost told him then. The words rose inside her, desperate and bright. "I'm pregnant. I'm scared. I need you. Please come back to me before I disappear completely." But the look on his face closed the door before she could open it. Not anger. Worse. Impatience. "It means I miss you," she said. Something flickered in him. Then it was gone. "I'm doing this for us." No, Mara whispered, though she was not sure he heard. "You're doing it because you don't know who you are without it." Caleb's jaw tightened. He left. The baby was 12 weeks along when the doctor's voice changed. Dr. Elaine Porter had kind hands and serious eyes. She had been Mara's physician for 2 years, long enough to know when Mara was pretending to be fine. Mara sat on the examination table paper, crinkling beneath her, while the ultrasound machine hummed beside them. The baby's heartbeat filled the small room fast and fierce like a tiny horse running through the dark. For a moment Mara smiled, then Dr. Porter grew quiet. "What is it?" Mara asked. The doctor set down the probe. "Your blood pressure is too high. It's been stressful. I know, but there's more. Your cardiac markers concern me. Your heart is working harder than it should this early in pregnancy." Mara stared at her. "What does that mean?" "It means this pregnancy may become dangerous." The word "may" did nothing to soften the blow. Dr. Porter explained carefully. More tests, more monitoring, less stress, more rest, immediate communication with her spouse, a support system, a plan. Mara heard all of it through the rushing sound in her ears. "Could I lose the baby?" Dr. Porter did not answer quickly enough. Mara's hand moved to her stomach. "Could I die?" The doctor's eyes softened. "We are going to do everything we can to prevent that." That was not no. Mara went home with a folder of medical papers and a terror so large it made the penthouse feel small. Caleb was in Washington for a private dinner with a congressman and 2 men whose names Mara was not supposed to know. He texted at 11. Long night. Sleep without me. Mara typed back, I need you. She stared at the words, then she erased them. Okay, she wrote. Vivian found out in March. Mara did not tell her. She would never know exactly how Vivian learned. Maybe it was a nurse who owed the Maddox family a favor. Maybe it was a driver. Maybe Vivian simply had too many eyes in too many places. It happened in the ladies' room of the Union League during a luncheon Mara had not wanted to attend. Mara stood at the sink, gripping the marble edge, waiting for the dizziness to pass. Her face looked pale in the mirror. Her lipstick was too red. Her eyes looked like they belonged to someone older. The door opened. Vivian entered. For a moment, neither woman spoke. Then Vivian locked the door. Mara turned. That's dramatic even for you. Vivian's gaze dropped to Mara's stomach. Does Caleb know Mara's skin went cold? Know what do not insult me? Mara lifted her chin. That I'm pregnant, no. Not yet. Vivian's expression did not soften. There was no joy, no surprise, no grandmotherly warmth, only calculation. How far along that is between me and my husband. Your husband carries a name that belongs to more than you. My child is not an asset. If the child is Caleb's, the child is Maddox's blood. Mara stepped closer. Say that again and I will forget where we are. Vivian laughed softly. There she is. The little temper you hide behind all that wounded sweetness. I'm not afraid of you. No, Vivian said. You are afraid of being alone. There is a difference. Mara felt the words land where Vivian intended them to. Vivian moved to the mirror and adjusted one pearl earring. You should tell him, of course. A child changes everything, but timing matters. Caleb is under enormous pressure. Federal attention, waterfront expansion, political commitments. A fragile announcement from a fragile wife could distract him at a dangerous moment. Mara stared at her. You want me to wait? I want you to think like a Maddox. I am not you. Vivian turned, smiling. No, you are not. From that day on, Caleb grew colder, not openly. Never in a way anyone else could accuse him of. But Mara felt it. He stopped asking if she wanted to come with him to dinners. Then Vivian began attending in her place. He stopped touching the small of Mara's back when they entered rooms. He stopped noticing when she left early. When Mara said she was tired, he looked concerned for 3 seconds, then distracted for 20 minutes. Vivian's words began coming out of Caleb's mouth. You've seemed emotional lately. This life requires resilience. My mother thinks you may need space. My mother says people are starting to notice. Mara would look at him and wonder when he had stopped hearing himself. One evening in April, she found his phone on the kitchen island while he showered. It buzzed with a voicemail notification. Her own name appeared on the screen. Mara frowned. She had left that message that morning after a doctor appointment where Dr. Porter had urged her to bring Caleb in immediately. Mara had called him from the parking garage, crying too hard to speak at first. Then she had managed enough. Caleb, please. I need you to call me back. It's about the baby. It's serious. The voicemail was marked unheard. Before Mara could touch it, Vivian's voice came from behind her. You should not look through your husband's phone. Mara turned slowly. Vivian stood near the entrance to the kitchen, gloved hands folded over her purse. How did you get in? I have keys to every Maddox residence. That doesn't answer my question. Vivian walked forward and picked up the phone as if it belonged to her. Mara watched her unlock it, watched her delete the voicemail, watched her place the phone back on the counter. The room became very still. You deleted my message. Vivian met her eyes. You were hysterical. You had no right. I have every right when your instability threatens my son's focus. Mara's hand curled protectively over her stomach. I am carrying his child, and yet you have handled even that like a crisis. Mara stepped forward, rage burning through her dizziness. You tell Caleb tonight or I will. Vivian smiled. You should. Truly. I am curious which version of you he will believe. The calm mother who has stood beside him since his father died, or the weeping wife who has become too delicate for the life she begged to join. Mara wanted to slap her. Instead, she picked up the phone and walked away. Caleb came home late. Again. Mara waited in his study this time. She sat in his leather chair, the one he used for men who came to ask favors and left owing more than they intended. A storm rolled over Philadelphia, and rain slid down the windows in silver threads. Caleb paused when he saw her. You're in my chair. I left you a voicemail today. He removed his coat slowly. I didn't hear it. I know. His eyes narrowed. What does that mean? It means your mother deleted it. The silence after that was sharp. Caleb placed his coat over the back of a chair. Mara. No, don't say my name like I'm already wrong. I'm not. You believe her before I even finish speaking. His face hardened. I'm tired. So am I. I have been keeping half this city from tearing itself apart. And I have been drowning in this apartment while your mother holds my head under and tells you I'm making waves. Caleb stared at her. For a moment, something like guilt crossed his face. Then his phone vibrated. Mara laughed once. The sound startled them both. Answer it, she said. He did not. But he looked at it. That was enough. Mara stood carefully because standing too fast made the room tilt now. Caleb noticed the movement, the way her hand touched the desk for balance. Concern flashed. Are you all right? There it was. The question she had wanted for months. It came too late and too small. No, she said. Caleb took a step toward her. The phone rang again. This time the name on the screen was Vivian. Mara looked from the phone to her husband. Do you know what the cruelest part is? Caleb did not answer. I think you still love me somewhere, but you love being needed by your empire more. His jaw clenched. That's not fair. No, Mara said. It isn't. She left him standing in the study with his mother calling between them. By May, Mara could no longer hide the pregnancy from herself, though she still hid it from the world. She wore long coats despite warm weather. She avoided photographers. She turned down invitations. Vivian used each refusal as evidence. At breakfast meetings, Vivian mentioned Mara's absences. At board dinners, Vivian sighed and said Mara had always been sensitive. At private moments, Vivian told Caleb that love was not the same as suitability. Caleb absorbed it all because it was easier than facing the woman upstairs who looked at him like he had become a stranger wearing her husband's face. The Maddox Foundation Gala approached like a verdict. Every year, the event brought the clean world and the dirty world into one ballroom and taught both to pretend there was a difference. The foundation funded hospitals, scholarship programs, addiction recovery centers, and public safety initiatives. It also washed reputations until they gleamed. This year mattered more than most. The waterfront redevelopment deal was entering its final stage. Caleb needed donors. Smiling politicians relaxed and enemies reminded that he still commanded every room he entered. Vivian had spent months shaping the guest list. Judges, developers, union men, state police officials, 2 federal lobbyists, 3 council members, 1 senator with a mouth too loose after bourbon. Mara had not wanted to go. Caleb had not asked if she wanted to. He simply stood in the bedroom one week before the gala, adjusting his tie in the mirror, and said, "The black gown will work." Mara looked up from the chair near the window. "What for Friday?" "The Bellevue Grand. My mother said the black gown photographs well." Mara's throat tightened. "Your mother chose my dress." Caleb met her eyes in the mirror. "It's not about the dress. No, it never is." He turned. "I need you beside me that night." The word should have warmed her. Once they would have. Now she heard what he did not say. "I need the image. I need the wife. I need the room to see what belongs to me." Mara rose slowly. "Do you need me, Caleb? Or do you need Mrs. Maddox?" His face closed. "Don't do that. Do what turn everything into an emotional test." The phrase was Vivian's. Mara knew it at once. Something inside her went very quiet. She walked to the dresser and opened the drawer where the white envelope still lay hidden beneath scarves. The ultrasound photo inside had softened at the edges from being touched too often. She almost took it out. Almost. Instead, she closed the drawer. "All right," she said. Caleb watched her, suspicious of the calm. "All right, I'll wear the black gown." He nodded once, relieved enough not to question the absence of anger. That night, Mara packed a small bag and placed it in the back of her closet. Not because she had decided to leave, not yet, because some part of her wanted to know whether she still could. Friday arrived in rain. The city looked washed and cold beneath a bruised sky. Mara spent the afternoon in a salon while 2 women curled her hair and painted her face into a version of herself that cameras would understand. They told her she looked beautiful. They told her she was glowing. Mara thanked them and tried not to laugh. Back at the penthouse, the black gown waited on the bed. Silk. Elegant. Expensive enough to be obscene. It had been altered to hide what Caleb had never truly looked at. Mara stood before the full-length mirror and placed both hands on her stomach. The baby moved beneath her palms, a slow, rolling pressure. "Just one more night," Mara whispered. "Then I'll tell him." Somehow, the bedroom door opened. Caleb entered in a tailored black tuxedo, phone in hand, attention split between Mara and whatever crisis lived on the screen. Then he looked up. For one breath he saw her. Really saw her. His eyes softened, and the ghost of the man from the museum stood in the room. "Mara," he said quietly. She turned toward him. The baby moved again. Caleb's gaze dropped for half a second, almost low enough, almost long enough. Then his phone buzzed. His expression changed. The ghost vanished. "We need to leave in 10, he said. Mara nodded. Vivian was waiting downstairs in the private garage, dressed in silver, her diamonds cold against her throat. She looked Mara over from hair to hem, pausing only briefly at the drape of the gown. "Very tasteful," Vivian said. Mara smiled. "Coming from you, that almost sounds like a warning." Caleb opened the car door. "Not tonight," he said. Mara looked at him. Of course. The ride to the Bellevue Grand was silent except for rain ticking against the roof, and Vivian speaking calmly about seating arrangements, donor placement, and which guests needed personal attention. Caleb listened. Mara watched the city through the window. People hurried beneath umbrellas. A young couple laughed under the awning of a closed coffee shop. A mother carried a sleeping child against her shoulder, one hand shielding the little girl's face from rain. Mara pressed her palm against her stomach. The car stopped in front of the hotel. Cameras flashed. The doorman opened Caleb's door first. He stepped out into the rain as if the weather had been arranged for atmosphere. Then he turned and offered Mara his hand. For a second she looked at it. His hand had once been the safest place she knew. She took it. The cameras caught the moment. Caleb Maddox, king of Philadelphia's shadowed river, guiding his beautiful wife into the light. No one photographed the way Mara's fingers trembled. No one saw Vivian smile behind them. Inside the ballroom glowed gold, and Mara felt the walls of her marriage closing in. The Bellevue Grand had been built for people who wanted to feel important before they ever said a word. Its ceilings rose high enough to make voices softer. Its marble floors shone like still water. Crystal chandeliers threw warm light across champagne glasses, polished shoes, silk gowns, and faces trained to hide greed behind manners. Tonight, every table carried white roses in tall silver vases. Mara hated roses. Caleb knew that once. He used to bring her wildflowers from roadside markets when he came home late, little bunches wrapped in brown paper, never arranged, never perfect. He said roses looked too much like apologies from guilty men. Now his mother had filled the entire ballroom with them. Mara looked at the flowers and felt something small and final twist inside her chest. Caleb moved beside her, with his hand resting lightly at the small of her back. To anyone watching, it was intimate, protective, the gesture of a husband guiding his wife through a crowded room. Mara knew better. His hand was placement, not comfort. He was positioning her where she belonged in the photograph. "Smile," Vivian murmured from Mara's other side. Mara did. Cameras flashed near the entrance. Donors called Caleb's name. Men who would not have dared interrupt him in private stepped forward in public with outstretched hands and white teeth. Women kissed Mara's cheek and told her she looked radiant. Politicians embraced Caleb with the warmth of men who owed too much to act distant. Caleb accepted it all with the calm authority of a man who knew the room had already surrendered before he entered. Maddox, a heavy-set councilman, said, gripping Caleb's hand with both of his, "Hell of a turnout. It is good to see you, Paul. Anything for the foundation." Mara watched the councilman's smile flicker. Everyone knew the foundation was the clean face of a dirty machine. Hospital wings, scholarships, addiction clinics, community grants, all paid for by money that had traveled through docks, warehouses, shell companies, and men who understood the cost of saying no. Caleb nodded toward Mara. "You remember my wife?" "How could anyone forget?" the councilman said. Mara felt his eyes move over her gown, her face the careful drape of black silk, hiding her body. "I'm glad you came," he added. "So am I." Mara said. The lie left her mouth smoothly. She was getting good at that. Caleb's attention had already moved past the councilman to a man near the bar. Cole Mercer stood there in a dark suit, one hand wrapped around a glass of water, his expression mild and alert. Cole never looked dangerous until danger looked back. He was Caleb's second in command, the one man in the organization who could tell Caleb the truth and live to do it. His gaze found Mara. He frowned slightly, not at the dress, not at the cameras, at her face. Mara looked away before concern could become a question. Vivian touched Caleb's sleeve. Senator Whitcomb is near the east alcove. You should speak to him before dinner. Caleb nodded. Mara, stay close. Stay close. Not come with me. Not are you all right, not take my arm. Mara's smile did not move. Of course. They crossed the room slowly, caught every few steps by another handshake, another compliment, another whispered request disguised as small talk. Caleb knew how to listen without giving anything away. He could make a man feel heard while offering nothing. He could nod at a threat and turn it into a favor. He could laugh at a joke and make the person telling it wonder if he had just made a mistake. Mara used to admire it. Tonight she saw only how often men mistook fear for respect. Senator Daniel Whitcomb stood near a marble column beneath a portrait of some dead railroad magnate. He was red-faced, broad-shouldered, and already leaning too heavily into the bourbon he held. His wife stood a few feet away, speaking with Vivian's friends and pretending not to notice the way her husband laughed too loudly. Caleb Whitcomb called, spreading his arms. There he is, the man who makes Philadelphia run. Caleb smiled. Careful, Senator. People may think you are giving away state secrets. Whitcomb roared with laughter and slapped Caleb's shoulder. Mara felt Caleb's body tighten under the touch, but his expression did not change. Mrs. Maddox Whitcomb said, turning to her, You look like you stepped out of one of those old Hollywood pictures. Thank you, Senator. You've been hiding from us. Haven't seen you at half the events this year. Mara felt Vivian's gaze slide toward her. I've been resting. Resting, Whitcomb repeated, amused. Must be nice. Caleb's mouth tightened by a fraction. Vivian stepped in with a gentle laugh. Mara has always been sensitive to crowded schedules. Some women are made for public life. Others need quieter rooms. The sentence floated between them, soft and poisonous. Mara looked at Caleb. He said nothing. Not one word. The baby shifted beneath her ribs, slow and heavy. Mara took a careful breath through her nose. The room smelled of perfume flowers, bourbon, and money. I find quiet rooms useful, Mara said. People reveal themselves when they think no one is listening. Vivian's smile sharpened. Whitcomb chuckled, too drunk to feel the blade. I like her, he said to Caleb. Stillwater's, eh? Caleb glanced at Mara, then really glanced, and for a moment she thought he might notice how pale she was. How she held her clutch with both hands to keep them from trembling. How the black silk lay differently over her body than it had 6 months ago. But a man in a navy suit approached and whispered something in Caleb's ear. The moment vanished. Caleb's eyes hardened. Excuse me. He stepped away with the man, leaving Mara with Vivian and the senator. Vivian watched him go, satisfaction hidden beneath composure. He has so much on his shoulders, she said. So you keep reminding me. Someone has to. Mara turned her head slowly. Do you ever get tired? Vivian arched one brow. Of what standing guard over a throne no one asked you to protect? The older woman's eyes cooled. You think love is enough to keep a man like Caleb alive? No, Mara said. I think love is what might have kept him human. Vivian moved closer, her voice lower now. Human men are buried. Powerful men are remembered. Mara looked across the room at Caleb. He stood with 3 men near the stage, speaking quietly, making the world bend with a few measured sentences. The chandelier light touched his dark hair. His face gave nothing away. Once she would have crossed the room and he would have felt her coming before she reached him. Once his eyes would have warmed. Once there had been a private language between them that no one else could read. Now she could have disappeared through the floor and he might not notice until someone asked where the picture-perfect wife had gone. He is already buried, Mara said. Vivian's expression flickered. Before she could answer, Cole appeared beside them. Mrs. Maddox, he said, can I get you some water? The question was simple. The concern beneath it was not. Mara almost refused. Pride rose first, sharp and useless. Then another wave of dizziness moved through her and the chandeliers blurred at the edges. "Yes," she said softly. "Thank you, Cole." Vivian watched him leave. "He is too familiar with you. He noticed I needed water. That is not familiarity. That is basic decency. Be careful, Mara. Lonely women often mistake attention for loyalty." Mara laughed under her breath. It surprised her how tired the sound was. "You are unbelievable," No, Vivian said. "I am experienced." Cole returned with water in a crystal glass. Mara took it and drank slowly. Cool relief moved down her throat. "You all right?" he asked quietly. Mara looked at him. Cole Mercer had seen men bleed out in alleys and boardrooms, had watched Caleb make decisions that changed lives before breakfast. He knew when someone was hiding pain. He knew because half his life had been spent hiding his own. "I will be," she said. Cole did not believe her, but he nodded. "If you need air, the South Terrace is empty." Vivian's voice cut in. "Mara does not need air. She needs composure." Cole looked at Vivian with the blank politeness of a man imagining several crimes and choosing none of them. Of course. Caleb returned before Vivian could say more. He looked at Cole, then Mara, then the glass in her hand. "Problem." The word struck harder than it should have. "Problem, not what happened, not are you okay?" Mara lowered the glass. "No problem." Cole's jaw shifted. He said nothing. A bell chimed near the stage, signaling that dinner would begin soon. Guests moved toward their assigned tables with the elegant disorder of people pretending not to care where they had been placed. Mara sat at the head table beside Caleb. Vivian sat on his other side. Of course she did. The first course arrived something delicate and expensive Mara could not name. She moved food around the plate while Caleb spoke with Whitcomb and a real estate developer named Grant Phelps. They discussed zoning, harbor access, environmental reviews, legal challenges that would somehow dissolve before reaching court. Mara listened without looking like she listened. That was one skill Vivian had never needed to teach her. "The South Pier acquisition is still a sticking point," Phelps said. "Owner refuses to sell." Caleb cut into his food with calm precision. "Everyone sells. This one has family history tied to the property. History is sentimental value. Sentimental value can be priced." Whitcomb snorted, or pressured. Caleb did not smile. "That would be illegal, Senator." The men laughed. Mara set down her fork. Vivian noticed. "You have barely eaten. I'm not hungry. You should try. People notice these things." Mara turned to her. "Let them." Caleb's conversation paused. His eyes moved to her. "Mara." One word. A warning dressed as her name. She looked at him and suddenly wanted to tell him everything right there. In front of the senator. In front of his mother. In front of every man who thought power made them untouchable. "I am carrying your child. Your daughter moves when you speak. I might die bringing her into this world. Your mother knows. Your mother has been keeping me from you. Your wife is not weak. She is exhausted from surviving you." But the words pressed against her throat and went nowhere. Because Caleb was not looking at her like a husband. He was looking at her like a disruption. Mara picked up her water glass. "Yes, Caleb." Something in his face moved, a crack almost. Then Whitcomb leaned forward loud and loose with liquor. "Come now, Caleb, don't scold her. If my wife looked like that, I'd let her do whatever she pleased." His own wife looked down at her plate. Mara felt sick. Caleb's eyes cooled. "Careful." Whitcomb lifted both hands. "No offense meant. Just saying a beautiful wife softens a hard man. Nothing wrong with that." Vivian's fork touched the edge of her plate with a small, precise sound. "A wife should strengthen a man," she said. "Softening him is another matter entirely." Caleb said nothing. Mara felt the baby kick hard. Her hand moved before she could stop it, pressing lightly against the curve hidden beneath the tablecloth. Caleb did not see. Vivian did. Her eyes dropped, then rose. For one breath, the hatred between them stood naked. Dinner ended. Speeches began. Caleb stood at the podium beneath the Maddox Foundation seal, handsome, and composed his voice low enough to make the room lean in. He spoke about community, opportunity, responsibility. He thanked donors, public servants, healthcare partners, and the city of Philadelphia. He spoke of his father's legacy, his mother's guidance, and the future they were building together. Mara sat perfectly still. When he mentioned family, Vivian touched his arm as he returned to the table. Mara clapped with everyone else. Her palms made no sound. After the speeches, music filled the room. Couples moved towards the dance floor. Caleb was pulled into another circle of men near the bar, Whitcomb among them. Vivian drifted with him like a shadow in silver silk. Mara stayed near a column at the edge of the room, one hand braced lightly against the marble. The pain in her back had started during dessert. A dull pressure at first. Now it came and went like a warning. She told herself it was stress. She told herself she would sit soon. She told herself she would make it through the night because she had made it through worse. Cole appeared again, his expression more serious now. I can call the car. No. Mara. The use of her first name startled her. She looked at him sharply. Cole lowered his voice. You look like you're about to fall over. I said no. He studied her face. Does Caleb know Mara went cold? Know what Cole's gaze dropped very briefly to her stomach. Mara's silence answered him. Pain crossed his face, quick and controlled. Jesus. Do not, she whispered. I wasn't going to. Do not tell him. Do not tell anyone. Mara, if you need help. I needed help months ago. Cole flinched. Before he could answer, laughter rose near the bar. Whitcomb's voice carried across the open space. Caleb, I have to ask. Man to man, when are you finally giving this city a Maddox air? The room shifted. Not all at once. Subtly. Conversations thinned. Heads turned. Smiles sharpened with curiosity. Mara's body went still. Cole's face hardened. Across the ballroom, Caleb stood with Whitcomb Phelps, Vivian, and half a dozen people whose approval mattered too much. He held a glass of bourbon untouched in one hand. The question hung in the air, vulgar and glittering. Whitcomb kept going, encouraged by his own voice. Your father built a dynasty. You expanded it. Seems to me the next step is obvious. A few men chuckled. Someone's wife looked away. Vivian stood beside Caleb, her posture perfect, her face calm. Too calm. Mara saw it then. This was not an accident. Maybe Whitcomb had asked the question on his own. Maybe Vivian had only planted the idea and waited for the bourbon to water it. It did not matter. The trap had opened and everyone was watching Caleb decide whether to step into it. He could have laughed it off. He could have said private matters were private. He could have looked for Mara across the room and remembered she was not an ornament placed there for judgment. Instead, Caleb smiled. Not warmly, not kindly. The smile he used when negotiating terms. An air is not simply produced because people are impatient, Senator. Whitcomb grinned. No, no. Caleb's voice carried easily. A name like Maddox requires more than blood. It requires discipline. Strength. A woman who understands what she is carrying before she carries it. Mara's breath caught. Cole turned toward her. Mara, he said quietly. She could not move. Caleb continued, each word polished enough to cut clean. My wife is beautiful. No one would argue that. The room gave the expected soft laughter. But beauty does not build legacy. A woman in this world cannot be fragile. She cannot wilt every time the room gets too loud or the schedule becomes demanding. She cannot mistake emotion for endurance. Mara felt the ballroom tilt. Her hand tightened around the marble column. Caleb was still speaking. She has to stand beside the name, not hide behind it. She has to be more than decoration at a gala. The silence after that was not empty. It was full of people deciding where to look. Some looked at Caleb with admiration. Some looked into their drinks. Some looked for Mara. Vivian looked directly at her and smiled. Not broadly, not enough for anyone else to notice. Enough for Mara to understand. There it is, the smile said. Now you know your place. Mara's chest tightened so sharply she almost gasped. The baby moved again, a slow roll beneath her ribs, as if startled by the violence of the room. Cole stepped closer. Let me get you out of here. Mara shook her head once. If she leaned on him, she would fall apart. If she fell apart, Vivian would win. Across the room, Whitcomb's laugh came late and uncomfortable. Well, damn, Caleb. Remind me not to ask family questions after bourbon. Caleb took a sip from his glass. Then don't. People laughed because they had permission to. The music resumed. The room exhaled. The moment passed for everyone except Mara. She stood near the column and looked at her husband. the father of the child inside her, the man who had once held her in the rain and promised honesty because he knew safety was too much to offer, the man who now discussed her like a failed investment in front of men who would never know what it cost her to stand upright. Something inside her broke, not loudly. There was no dramatic crack, no collapse, no sob that drew attention. It was quieter than that. A door closing. Mara placed her water glass on a passing tray. Her fingers were steady now. Strange how pain could become clarity if it went deep enough. Cole watched her. Mara, she looked at him. His anger was barely contained. Don't, she said. He doesn't know what he just did. Yes, Mara whispered. That is the problem. She turned and walked toward the ballroom doors. Not fast, not running. Her back straight, her chin lifted. Every inch Mrs. Caleb Maddox exactly as Vivian had trained the world to see her. A photographer near the entrance lifted his camera. Mara looked at him once. He lowered it. The hallway outside the ballroom was cooler, quieter, lined with mirrors and gold sconces. Music followed her through the doors, muffled now as if the life she was leaving had already moved underwater. A young security guard straightened. Mrs. Maddox, my coat. Of course. And a car. He touched his earpiece. I'll notify Mr. Maddox's driver. No. The guard paused. Mara turned towards him fully. Her face must have shown something because his hand dropped from the earpiece. Call another car, she said. Not one employed by my husband. Ma'am, I don't know if I can. Then find someone who can. He swallowed. Yes, ma'am. While he hurried away, Mara stepped into the ladies' room. She locked herself in the largest stall and finally let one hand spread across her stomach. The baby shifted beneath her palm. I'm sorry, Mara whispered. Her voice broke on the second word. I'm so sorry you heard that. A contraction of pain moved through her. Not labor, not yet, but fear made physical. She breathed through it the way Dr. Porter had taught her. Slow inhale, slow exhale, count the tiles, count the seconds, do not panic. Panic steals air, and the baby needs air. When she came out, Vivian stood at the sinks, of course. The older woman was touching up her lipstick. Mara stopped. Their reflections faced each other in the mirror. Vivian blotted her mouth with a tissue. You are leaving early. Mara walked to the sink and turned on the water. She did not need to wash her hands. She needed the sound. Yes, that would be unwise. Mara looked at her reflection. Most free choices look unwise to people who prefer cages. Vivian turned. You are emotional tonight. Mara shut off the water. No, I was emotional when I begged my husband to see me. I was emotional when I thought love could survive neglect if I just loved harder. I was emotional when I protected a child from a family that would call her blood before calling her beloved. Vivian's eyes narrowed. Be careful. Mara faced her. I am done being careful with people who were careless with me. For the first time all night, Vivian's composure thinned. You have no idea what leaving Caleb would cost you. Mara's smile was small and empty. You have no idea what staying already has. She walked past Vivian and did not look back. The guard waited near the service entrance with her coat. Car is outside, he said quietly. Side door. No cameras. Mara studied him. What is your name, Evan? Thank you, Evan. He nodded, eyes lowered. Good luck, ma'am. The words almost undid her. Outside rain fell in silver sheets. The side street smelled of wet stone and exhaust. A black town car waited at the curb. Not Caleb's, not marked, not familiar. The driver got out and opened the rear door. Where to? Mara climbed in carefully, one hand protecting her stomach as she settled into the seat. For a moment she almost said home. The word rose by habit. Then she looked back at the golden windows of the Bellevue Grand where Caleb still stood inside the world he had chosen. Not home. Not anymore. The Lombard Street apartment, she said. The driver nodded and pulled away from the curb. Philadelphia slid past in broken reflections. Streetlights streaked across the wet glass. People moved beneath umbrellas, laughing, rushing, living ordinary lives full of ordinary heartbreaks. Mara removed her earrings first. Diamond drops Caleb had given her after their first anniversary dinner. He had fastened them himself, his lips brushing the side of her neck, whispering that she looked dangerous. She placed them in her clutch. Then the bracelet. Then the necklace. Last she looked at her rings. The engagement diamond flashed in the passing lights, absurdly bright, a small cold star on her hand. Caleb had chosen it because he did nothing halfway. 5 carats, platinum, a ring meant to announce possession before love. Her wedding band sat beneath it, simple and smooth. That one had mattered. That one had been a promise. Mara twisted both rings slowly, working them over the slight swelling in her finger. For a second they resisted. So had she. Then they came free. Her hand looked naked without them. No, not naked. Her own. The baby moved again, softer this time. Mara pressed the rings into her palm until the edges hurt. "I will not let you grow up begging to be noticed," she whispered. "Not by him, not by anyone." The driver's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror, then away. Kindness, Mara realized, often looked like pretending not to hear. When the car reached the apartment building on Lombard Street, Mara paid in cash from the emergency envelope she had kept hidden in the lining of her purse. Caleb owned the apartment through one of his companies, but he had forgotten about it after using it twice during the early days of the harbor negotiations. That was the thing about powerful men. They collected safe houses and forgot some of them had doors. Mara remembered. She let herself in through the side entrance, rode the old elevator to the 4th floor, and stepped into darkness. The apartment smelled faintly of dust leather and cold air. No staff, no flowers, no Vivian, no cameras she did not already know how to avoid. She turned on one lamp. The room filled with amber light. For a minute, Mara stood completely still, listening to her own breathing. The rain at the windows, the distant pulse of traffic. Then she moved. She took off the black gown first. Not gently. She unzipped it with trembling fingers, stepped out of the silk, and left it on the bedroom floor like a shed skin. In the bathroom mirror, her body stood revealed at last. Her stomach rounded beneath her slip, unmistakable, now beautiful and terrifying. Mara touched the curve with both hands. "There you are," she thought. "Here I am." She changed into leggings, a loose sweater, and flat shoes she had hidden in the closet weeks earlier. From the back shelf, she pulled down a small suitcase. Into it went clothes that did not announce wealth: a wool coat, cash, her passport, medical records, a prepaid phone, and the journal she had carried from room to room like a witness. Her hands paused over the cedar box on the desk. Caleb had bought it in Charleston during their honeymoon from an old man who carved roses into wood while telling them marriage required patience and good weather was overrated. Mara had laughed. Caleb had kissed her in the shop doorway. She opened the box. Inside were small pieces of another life, a museum ticket from the night they met, a dried wildflower, a note Caleb had once left on her pillow. "Couldn't sleep. You looked peaceful. I did not want to wake you. I love you." Mara sat at the desk. For a long time she stared at the blank paper in front of her. Then she began to write. "Caleb, by the time you read this, I will be gone." She stopped there, breathing hard. The baby pressed against her side. Mara continued. "I tried to tell you, I tried so many times that I started to feel foolish for needing my husband to know he was becoming a father. Your daughter is inside me. She has been for months. I know you did not see it. That is the part I cannot survive anymore." The pen moved faster. She wrote about the doctor, the danger, the nights alone. Vivian, the deleted voicemail. The way Caleb had repeated his mother's words until Mara could no longer tell where Vivian ended and he began. She did not soften the truth. Not for him. Not anymore. When she finished, her hand ached. She folded the letter and placed it in the cedar box with the rings, the ultrasound photo, the medical records, copied journal pages, and the small recorder that held Vivian's voice. Then Mara called another car, this one to the bus station on Filbert Street. Before leaving, she looked once around the apartment. She had arrived in a gown chosen by her enemy. She would leave in her own clothes, carrying her daughter and the last pieces of her pride. At the door, she paused. For one foolish second, she imagined Caleb calling. Not his assistant, not Vivian. Him. "Mara, where are you, Mara? I saw you leave. Mara, come back." Her phone stayed dark. She opened the door and stepped into the hall. Back at the Bellevue Grand, Caleb stood beneath the chandeliers with bourbon in his hand and men laughing around him. Across the city, his wife disappeared into the rain with his child beneath her heart and his name no longer on her hand. He did not feel it at first. That was the cruelty of certain endings. They did not explode when they happened. They slipped quietly out of the room wearing a black coat, leaving behind music, laughter, and a husband too proud to turn his head. Caleb remained at the gala for another hour. He spoke to Senator Whitcomb about the waterfront vote. He gave Grant Phelps instructions about the South Pier acquisition. He accepted a handshake from a judge whose son had recently avoided prosecution after a quiet conversation in the right office. He smiled when cameras flashed. He thanked donors. He let Vivian stand beside him like a queen mother carved from silver and ice. Once near midnight, Cole Mercer approached him. You seen Mara Caleb glance toward the crowd. She stepped out. Cole's stare did not move. She left over an hour ago. Something small tightened in Caleb's chest, but he buried it beneath irritation. She gets tired at these things. Cole's jaw flexed. That what you're calling it? Caleb turned fully then. What is that supposed to mean? Cole looked as if he wanted to say 10 things, each more dangerous than the last. Instead, he looked past Caleb toward Vivian, who was speaking with Whitcomb near the bar. It means maybe you should go home. Caleb's eyes narrowed. I do not take orders from you. No, Cole said quietly. You take them from her. Caleb's expression went still. In another room on another night, a man might have died for less. Cole did not blink. Caleb stepped closer, voice low. Choose your next words carefully. Cole leaned in just enough for only Caleb to hear. You humiliated your wife in a ballroom full of people who hate you. Whatever you think she is feeling right now, it is worse. Caleb's hand tightened around the glass. For 1 second, something hot and defensive rose in him. Mara was emotional. Mara had been distant. Mara had not been herself for months. His mother had warned him. Everyone had noticed. He had only said what needed to be said. The argument sounded weak even inside his own head. He set the glass on a passing tray. Bring the car. Cole held his gaze. Already waiting. Caleb left without saying goodbye. Vivian saw him moving toward the exit and lifted one delicate hand. Caleb. He did not stop. The ride to the penthouse was silent. Rain blurred the city into streaks of red and white. Caleb sat in the back seat, one hand resting on his knee, the other holding his phone. No messages from Mara, no missed calls. That bothered him more than it should have. Mara always sent something, even when they fought, even when she was angry. A text, a quiet question, a reminder that he had not eaten, a good-night message if she went to bed before he came home. The absence felt intentional. He called her. It rang until voicemail. He called again. Voicemail. By the third call, his irritation had sharpened into something less familiar. Concern. He disliked the shape of it. When the elevator opened into the penthouse, the place was dark except for the city glow pouring through the glass walls. Caleb stepped inside and stood still. Mara. His voice crossed the marble floor and came back empty. He moved through the living room first. No purse on the console, no shoes near the bedroom door, no soft lamp burning beside the sofa where she sometimes read when she could not sleep. The kitchen was spotless. Too spotless. Mara. Louder this time. Nothing. He went to the bedroom. The bed was turned down on his side, untouched on hers. Her silk robe hung from the chair. Her perfume bottle sat on the dresser. The diamond bracelet he had given her last Christmas lay inside the jewelry tray. But her wedding rings were not there. Caleb stared at the tray for a long moment, not yet understanding why that absence reached into his chest and squeezed. His phone vibrated. Vivian. He ignored it. He opened the closet. Her gowns hung in neat rows, black emerald, ivory, midnight blue. Her shoes lined the shelves. Her luggage was still there, except for one small suitcase. The pressure in his chest deepened. He turned back toward the bed. That was when he saw the cedar box. It sat on his pillow, not hidden, not tossed aside, placed deliberately. Caleb knew the box. Charleston, their honeymoon, a shop near the water. Mara laughing as rain hit the windows. The old craftsman telling them cedar kept memories safe longer than people did. Caleb had bought it because Mara loved the carved flowers on the lid. He had not thought of it in years. Now it waited for him like a verdict. He crossed the room slowly. His hand hovered over the lid. For reasons he would never admit, he was afraid to open it. Then he did. The rings were on top. Her engagement ring caught the gray light from the windows, sharp and cold. Beneath it lay the wedding band, simple, familiar, impossible. Caleb picked them up. They felt too small to destroy a man. Under the rings was a folded ultrasound photo. At first his mind refused to name what he was seeing. A grainy image, a curved shape, a date printed in the corner. Mara Ellis Maddox, 28 weeks. His body went cold. He reached for the letter with fingers that no longer obeyed him. "Caleb, by the time you read this, I will be gone." He sat down on the edge of the bed. The room seemed to tilt around him. "I tried to tell you. I tried so many times that I started to feel foolish for needing my husband to know he was becoming a father. Your daughter is inside me. She has been for months. I know you did not see it. That is the part I cannot survive anymore." Caleb stopped reading. His breath came once hard and shallow. "Daughter." The word did not enter gently. It broke in. A daughter. He looked at the ultrasound again. The small shape on the paper blurred, sharpened, blurred again. He forced himself back to the letter. "The doctors are worried about my heart. They are worried about the blood pressure. They are worried that stress could kill me before I ever reach the delivery room. I was told to rest. I was told to bring you to my appointments. I was told not to carry fear alone. I carried it anyway because every time I reached for you, someone else had your attention." Caleb's throat tightened. He turned the page. "Your mother knew. She knew before you did. She deleted my message the day I called you crying from the parking garage. She told me I was unstable. She told me I would distract you. She told me the Maddox name required strength, and then tonight you stood in front of everyone and repeated her words with your own mouth." He stood so abruptly the letter nearly tore. No. The word left him like a denial, but there was no one in the room to convince. He paced once, twice, then returned to the box because the punishment was not finished. There were medical records beneath the letter. Caleb opened them. Clinical language stared up at him. Elevated blood pressure, cardiac strain, high-risk pregnancy, stress reduction advised, immediate family support recommended. Patient reports spouse is unavailable. Patient appears emotionally distressed. Patient declined hospitalization due to personal circumstances. A line near the bottom seemed to detach from the page. Potential maternal mortality risk discussed. Caleb read it again. Then again, maternal mortality. The room went silent in a new way. Not empty, accusing. He picked up the journal pages next. Mara's handwriting filled them, elegant but less steady in places, as if she had written some entries while tired or afraid. January 12th. I found out I am pregnant today. I wanted Caleb to know first. I called 3 times. His assistant answered. I told her not to interrupt him. I do not know why I did that. Maybe I already knew where I ranked. February 4th. Vivian watched me refuse wine and smiled like she had found a weapon. Caleb came home after 2 in the morning. I almost told him, but he had blood on his cuff and someone else's emergency in his eyes. March 19th. Dr. Porter says my heart is struggling. She wants Caleb at the next appointment. I said I would try. I hate that word, try. It is what people say when they already know they are alone. April 3rd. Vivian deleted my voicemail. I saw her do it. I saw her look at me while she did it. Caleb believed I was being dramatic before I even spoke. I think that is when I understood she had not stolen him all at once. She had taught him not to hear me. Caleb's hand covered his mouth. There were mistakes a man could outrun. Blood on streets. Deals made in smoke-filled rooms. Betrayals answered before sunrise. This one sat on his bed in his wife's handwriting. He could not shoot it. He could not buy it. He could not make someone else pay for it. At the bottom of the box was a small black recorder. Caleb stared at it. His pulse beat in his ears. Then he pressed play. Vivian's voice filled the room. "Caleb, darling, we need to talk about Mara." His own voice followed, distracted and impatient. "What now? She is becoming a liability." A pause. Papers rustling. His study. He remembered that night vaguely. Rain at the windows. A file in his hand. Vivian seated across from him with tea she never drank. "She is tired," his recorded voice said. "She is fragile. There is a difference, mother. Do not mother me when you know I am right. A man in your position cannot afford a wife who needs constant reassurance. Your father understood that." Silence. Vivian continued. "She pulls at you. She makes you hesitate. She makes you feel guilty for being what you were born to be." Caleb heard himself sigh. "What do you want me to do, create distance? Let her understand that being Mrs. Maddox is not a role for a delicate woman. If she cannot rise to the name, perhaps she should step aside before children complicate matters. Another pause. Then Caleb's voice, low, tired, damning. Maybe you are right. The recorder clicked off. Caleb did not move. The man on that recording was him, not Vivian alone, not manipulation alone. His voice, his agreement, his failure. A sound came out of him, half breath, half something broken. The phone rang again. Vivian. This time he answered. Her voice came through smooth and controlled. Caleb, where are you? People were asking why you left without saying goodnight. What did you do? Silence. Then carefully. Excuse me. What did you do to my wife? Vivian exhaled as if he had disappointed her. Mara left the gala early because she cannot regulate her emotions. I warned you this kind of instability would get worse. She is pregnant. Another silence. Not surprise, calculation. Caleb closed his eyes. You knew. Caleb, you knew she was carrying my child. I suspected. You deleted her message. She was hysterical. She was scared. She was disruptive. She is my wife. She is a woman who has never understood the weight of our family. Caleb's eyes opened. He looked at the ultrasound on the bed, the rings, the medical records, the letter stained now where his wet fingers had touched it. Our family, he said quietly. Vivian softened her voice. That was when she was most dangerous. Darling, listen to me. If Mara is pregnant, then we need to handle this carefully. She may use the child to secure her place. She may have left to force your hand. Emotional women often confuse drama with power. Caleb laughed once. It was a terrible sound. She ran from me. She wants you to chase her. She left her rings, to frighten you. She left medical records showing she might die, to manipulate you. She left your voice on a recording. Vivian stopped breathing for half a second. Caleb heard it. When she spoke again, the softness had thinned. You recorded me, no, Mara did. Maybe because she knew one day I would need evidence to believe my own wife over my mother. Careful, Caleb. No, he said, you be careful. A long quiet stretched between them. When he spoke again, his voice was very calm. You have 24 hours to remove yourself from every board account, trust foundation, seat, and company tied to my name. Vivian's laugh was quiet and cold. You are upset. I am awake. You cannot cut me out of what I built. You built nothing. You preserved a grave and taught me to live inside it. I made you strong. You made me cruel. I made you survive. You made me lose my wife. For the first time in his life, Vivian's voice rose. You are being led by guilt. That girl has poisoned you. Caleb looked down at Mara's rings in his palm. No, you did. Caleb, I am your mother, and she is the mother of my child. That child is Maddox's blood. His voice dropped. Say that again, and it will be the last time you speak of my daughter. Vivian went silent. Caleb continued. Do not come to my home. Do not contact Mara. Do not move money. Do not speak to lawyers on my behalf. If you make one move toward my wife, I will bury every piece of influence you have left, and I will not use family manners to do it. You would threaten me, I learned from you. He ended the call. For several minutes, Caleb stood in the bedroom with the dead phone in his hand. Then he threw it against the wall. It shattered on impact pieces, skidding across the marble floor. The violence did not help. Nothing helped. He went to his study and used the landline. Cole answered on the second ring. Tell me she is with you, Caleb said. She is not. The answer hit harder than expected. Cole's voice changed. What happened? Caleb looked through the open bedroom door toward the cedar box on the bed. She is pregnant. Cole said nothing. I did not know. Still nothing. She is sick. Her heart. The pregnancy is dangerous. Caleb heard Cole exhale. God, my mother knew. She kept it from me. Mara left everything. Letters, records, proof. Cole's voice was low. Where is she? I do not know. Do you want me to find her? Caleb almost said yes. The old answer rose by instinct. Find her, bring her home, close every road, watch every station, put men at airports, call in favors, make the city turn its pockets inside out. Then he saw Mara's words again. I will not let our daughter grow inside a house where her mother is invisible. He closed his eyes. I want to know she is alive. That is not the same order. No. Good. Caleb opened his eyes. I need you to take operational control. Cole's silence carried shock. of the docks, everything. Caleb, I am stepping back. You do not step back from something like this. I do now. Cole's voice hardened. You walk away tonight, men will test the edges by morning. Vivian will move, Whitcomb will panic, Phelps will look for another hand to kiss, the unions will smell blood. You understand that, yes, and you are still doing it. Caleb picked up the ultrasound photo from the bed. Yes. Cole was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I will hold the line. Vivian gets nothing, I assumed. Use lawyers, not guns. That earned a bitter little laugh. Who are you and what did you do with Caleb Maddox? Caleb stared at the photo. I do not know yet. After the call, he moved with the cold efficiency that had once made men fear him. But everything he did now felt like dismantling a machine that had eaten his life. He called Gerald Price, the family attorney, and ordered Vivian's removal from every legal structure she touched. Gerald protested. Caleb did not raise his voice. By the end of the call, documents were being drafted. He called the head of private security and revoked Vivian's access to the penthouse, the Bryn Mawr estate accounts, and the family offices. He called his assistant and asked for the name of a private investigator who found people without leaving trails. Then he sat at Mara's side of the bed and waited. The investigator arrived at dawn. Her name was Rachel Voss, former federal analyst. Calm eyes, plain black coat. She stepped into the penthouse, looked at the broken phone on the floor, the papers on the bed, and Caleb's face. Your assistant said this was urgent. My wife is missing. Missing or gone, Caleb did not answer. Rachel nodded once. That matters. She left by choice. Then I will ask once. Is she in danger from someone other than you? The question should have offended him. It did not. Yes, he said. Her pregnancy is high risk. She needs medical care. Rachel studied him. And from you, Caleb looked toward the cedar box. She believed she was. Did she have reason his throat worked? Yes. Rachel set her bag on a chair. Then understand me clearly. I can try to confirm her safety. I can look for signs she is receiving medical attention, but if I find her and she has taken steps not to be found, giving you her location may put her at risk. I will not hurt her. Most men who hurt women say that. Caleb looked at her. Rachel did not look away. He nodded once. Find her. Rachel opened her notebook. Full name, Mara Ellis Maddox. She may use Mara Ellis. Likely transportation cash car from the gala. Maybe bus, maybe train, friends few. None she would trust with this. Rachel's pen paused. That says something, I know. For the next 3 days, Caleb did not sleep more than an hour at a time. Philadelphia continued without his permission, which felt both impossible and deserved. Cole handled the waterfront negotiations. Gerald sent documents for electronic signature. Vivian called from new numbers until Caleb stopped answering any number he did not know. The penthouse became a place of evidence. Mara's letter lay on the desk. The ultrasound photo stayed in Caleb's jacket pocket. Her rings rested in his palm so often they left small half-moon marks in his skin. He read the journal pages until he knew them by heart. I needed help months ago. He remembered Cole saying her name at the gala, the way Mara had stood near the column, pale, still, alone. He remembered her hand at her stomach in passing moments he had not understood, her refusal of wine, her exhaustion, her careful clothing, her eyes asking questions he had been too impatient to hear. Memory became a room full of witnesses. On the 4th morning, Rachel Voss called. Caleb answered before the first ring finished. Tell me, I found a cash purchase at the Filbert Street bus station. Ticket bought under Mara Ellis. Destination, Portland, Maine. From there she changed buses. Final route points to a coastal town called Cape Wren. Caleb stood. Address not yet, find one. I am working on it. Is she alive? She was seen getting off the bus 2 days ago, alone, carrying one suitcase. A clerk at a pharmacy remembers her buying prenatal vitamins, bottled water, and a blood pressure monitor. Caleb gripped the edge of the desk. A blood pressure monitor. Rachel continued. There is a clinic in town. Small. One doctor. If she is smart, she went there. She is smart. Then she may also have told them not to speak to anyone. I am leaving now. Mr. Maddox. He stopped with his hand already reaching for his coat. Rachel's voice was firm. You cannot arrive like a man reclaiming property. Caleb closed his eyes. I know. Do you? Because women do not vanish while pregnant unless staying felt worse than running. The word struck clean. Caleb looked at Mara's rings on the desk. "I know," he said quieter this time. He left the gun in the drawer. He left the driver downstairs. He took one car, no guards, no convoy, no men with earpieces pretending to be shadows. As he drove north through the gray morning, Philadelphia loosened behind him, bridge by bridge, mile by mile. The city he had ruled became smaller in the rearview mirror until it looked like something he might have imagined. In his jacket pocket, the ultrasound photo bent slightly against his heart. Caleb kept one hand on the wheel and one hand around Mara's rings. Rain began again near the New Jersey line. By the time he crossed into Maine, the sky had turned the color of steel, and the road ahead narrowed between dark pines and glimpses of a cold Atlantic Sea. For the first time since he was 22 years old, Caleb Maddox had no plan that mattered. No leverage, no threat, no guarantee that the woman he loved would even open the door. He drove toward Cape Wren anyway, carrying proof of everything he had lost and the first honest fear he had ever allowed himself to feel. By the time Caleb Maddox reached the Maine coast, the world looked nothing like Philadelphia. There were no glass towers here, no black town cars idling beneath hotel awnings, no men in tailored suits pretending they were not armed. The highway narrowed into two lanes that bent through pine woods and low fog. Salt hung in the air. Weathered houses appeared between trees, their porches sagging toward the sea as if they had spent 100 years listening to storms and had decided not to complain. Cape Wren sat at the edge of the Atlantic like it had been placed there by accident and kept alive by stubbornness. A lighthouse stood on a rocky point north of the harbor, its white paint peeling under a sky the color of wet slate. Lobster boats knocked softly against the docks. Gulls cried overhead. The main street was short enough to see from one end to the other, lined with a diner, a bait shop, a pharmacy, a post office, a church with a crooked steeple, and a bookstore with blue trim and warm light in the windows. The lantern page. Caleb slowed as he passed it. Something in him knew before reason did. The building was narrow, old and soft around the edges, with books stacked in the front window and a painted wooden sign swinging above the door. There was an apartment above it. One upstairs window glowed faintly behind thin curtains. He pulled over across the street and sat with both hands on the wheel. She could be there. Mara could be behind that window, breathing the same air, carrying his daughter, hating him enough to survive. His chest tightened. A man stepped out of the bait shop and paused to look at Caleb's car. Then another man across the street did the same. A woman leaving the pharmacy slowed with a paper bag in her arms. Their eyes were not curious in the way city people were curious. They were measuring, noting, remembering. Caleb understood the look. Cape Wren had noticed him. He left the car and stepped onto the sidewalk. The wind off the water moved through his coat. He had changed out of his suit before crossing into Maine, choosing dark jeans, a black sweater, and a plain wool coat. It had not helped. The watch on his wrist, the way he carried himself, the stillness around him that men in his world learned or died without, all of it announced him as someone who did not belong. The diner bell rang when he pushed open the door. Every conversation stopped. The place smelled of coffee-frying butter and rain-soaked wool. Red vinyl booths lined one wall. Framed photographs of fishing boats hung crooked near the counter. A group of old men sat near the window with mugs in front of them. A young couple shared fries in the back. Behind the counter, a woman in her 50s with gray hair in a braid looked him over once and decided not to be impressed. "Kitchen closes in 20, she said. Caleb took a seat at the counter. "Coffee is fine." She poured it without asking how he took it. The mug landed in front of him with a solid little sound. "You passing through know that, so I'm looking for someone." The air changed. Not much. Enough. One of the old men near the window set down his mug. The cook behind the service window looked up. The young woman in the back booth stopped chewing. The waitress placed both hands on the counter. People who come here looking usually bring trouble with them. Caleb wrapped his hand around the coffee mug. The heat burned his palm and he welcomed it. "I probably did." She studied him. "At least you know. I'm looking for my wife." The woman's face did not move. Name Caleb hesitated. If Mara had come here using her maiden name, saying Maddox might feel like betrayal. Mara Ellis. The old man nearest the window leaned back in his chair. The waitress's eyes sharpened. "And who are you, Caleb Maddox?" A silence followed that told him the name had already arrived before he did. The waitress gave a humorless little breath. Philadelphia. Yes. Mara's husband. The word husband sounded like an accusation. Caleb accepted it. Yes. The waitress folded her arms. My name is Nora. Before you ask another question, understand something. This town has about 3,000 people if you count the ones who leave every winter and come crawling back by spring. We know who belongs here. We know who is trying to disappear here. And we know when a man walks in wearing guilt like a second coat. Caleb looked into his coffee. Then you know why I'm here. No, Nora said. I know why men say they are here. That is different. He lifted his eyes to hers. My wife is pregnant. Her condition is dangerous. I hurt her badly enough that she ran instead of asking me for help. I need to know she is alive and receiving medical care. The old man by the window spoke. You need to know or you need to take her back. Caleb turned toward him. The man had white hair, a sun-cracked face, and hands that looked permanently shaped by rope and cold water. I do not have the right to take her anywhere. The old man watched him for a long moment. Does she know you figured that out? No. Then it is not worth much yet. Nora's expression shifted slightly, not softening but changing shape. She is alive, she said. Caleb's breath left him before he could stop it. The diner saw it. Every person there saw the great Caleb Maddox lower his head over a cup of coffee because one sentence had kept the floor beneath him. Nora looked away first. She does not want to see you, I know. Do you? He nodded. I know she has reason not to. The kitchen door opened and a large man with flour on his shirt stepped out, wiping his hands on a towel. Nora, I heard him, she said. The man's eyes moved to Caleb. You Caleb? Yes, I'm Owen. I own the place with Nora. My sister rents rooms above the bookstore. Caleb's pulse changed. Owen saw it. Careful, he said. That look right there is why half this town is ready to put you back in your car. Caleb forced his hand to release the mug. I will not go to her unless she agrees. You say that now. It is still true. Nora turned toward the kitchen. Call Sam. Owen did not move. Nora, call him. Owen looked at Caleb once more, then disappeared into the back. Caleb sat in the diner while the town decided what to do with him. No one spoke to him. No one threatened him. That almost made it worse. In Philadelphia, anger announced itself. Here judgment sat quietly with coffee and pie. After 10 minutes, the door opened again. A man in a navy raincoat stepped inside, carrying a black medical bag. He was around 60, lean, with silver hair, tired eyes, and the kind of face that had learned to deliver bad news without hiding from it. He came straight to Caleb. Dr. Samuel Hayes. Caleb stood. Caleb Maddox, I know. Dr. Hayes did not offer his hand. Caleb let his own remain at his side. Is she all right? The doctor's mouth tightened. She is alive. That is not the same answer. No, Hayes said. It is not. Nora came around the counter and locked the diner door, flipping the sign to close, though there were still people inside. No one objected. Dr. Hayes sat in the booth nearest the back. Caleb followed. The doctor waited until Caleb sat across from him. I am going to speak plainly because I do not have the patience for powerful men who need information wrapped in velvet. Mara is in serious danger. Her blood pressure is unstable. Her heart is under strain. She should be in a hospital with a full maternal fetal medicine team and cardiac support. Instead, she is in a town clinic with one doctor, one nurse who works part-time and equipment old enough to vote. Caleb's hand curled beneath the table. Then move her. Hayes' eyes hardened. There he is. Caleb stopped. The words came back to him. You cannot arrive like a man reclaiming property. He forced himself to breathe. I meant, can she be moved safely, not if she refuses, and she has refused. Why? Dr. Hayes leaned back. Because going back to any city makes her think you will have control again. Because hospitals have administrators and forms and people who can be pressured. Because every time someone mentions calling her husband, her pulse spikes. Because she told me she would rather die free than survive as property. Caleb looked down. The words entered him slowly, each one with teeth. I never wanted her to feel that way. No, Hayes said. Men like you rarely want the wound. You just want the obedience that causes it. Nora from behind the counter muttered amen. Caleb did not defend himself. There had been a time when he would have. There had been a time when he would have corrected the doctor's tone, reminded the room who he was, made fear enter the air like smoke. That man had brought him here. I read her records, Caleb said. Not all. Enough. Tell me what she needs. Hayes studied him. Why? Because I can provide it. Money. Yes. Money cannot make her trust you. I know. Money cannot undo whatever you did, I know. Money can become another leash if you use it wrong. Caleb looked up. Then you use it, not me. Tell me what the clinic needs. Tell me what specialist you need. Emergency transport, monitoring equipment, medication, nurses. Whatever keeps Mara and the baby alive. Do it through your name. Keep mine out of it if that helps her breathe easier. Hayes did not answer right away. The diner remained still. Finally, the doctor said, If I accept help, it does not buy you access. I understand. It does not buy you gratitude. I do not expect any. It does not make you the decision-maker. She is. Hayes looked toward Nora, then back at Caleb. You practiced that answer. No, Caleb said. I paid for not knowing it sooner. Something in Dr. Hayes's face shifted. Not approval, not forgiveness. Maybe the beginning of a reluctant belief that Caleb understood the first inch of the road ahead. She is staying above the lantern page, he said. Caleb's heart struck hard once. The upstairs window. But you are not going there alone, Hayes continued. June decides if you get through the door. Mara decides if you stay longer than one breath. If she asks you to leave, you leave. Yes. If she panics, you leave. Yes. If your presence raises her pressure, you leave. Yes. Nora crossed her arms. And if you hurt that girl again, there are lobster traps in this town heavy enough to hold a man down. Owen coughed from the kitchen doorway. Nora. What he should know. Caleb looked at her. I believe you. Nora's expression did not change. Good. The walk from the diner to the bookstore took less than 3 minutes. It felt longer than the drive from Philadelphia. Rain had thinned to mist. The town lights glowed soft in the fog. Caleb followed Dr. Hayes down the sidewalk past the post office and the dark pharmacy toward the blue-trimmed bookstore with the upstairs window. A small bell hung over the door. Inside, the lantern page smelled of old paper cedar shelves and cinnamon tea. Lamps glowed on tables stacked with paperbacks. A cat lifted its head from an armchair, judged Caleb immediately, and went back to sleep. A woman stood behind the counter. She was in her late 50s, maybe early 60s, with silver hair cut to her chin and reading glasses on a chain around her neck. She wore a green cardigan with one elbow patched in brown fabric. Her face looked kind until her eyes landed on Caleb. Then kindness took a step back and made room for steel. June, Dr. Hayes said, I know who he is. Caleb said nothing. June Whitaker came around the counter slowly. So you are the man who made her flinch when I moved too fast. Caleb absorbed it. Yes. The man whose name she would not say for 2 days. Yes. The man whose baby she talks to every night like the child is the only witness who ever believed her. His throat tightened. Yes. June stopped in front of him. You are taller than I expected. Caleb blinked. I'm sorry. She looked him over. Men who do small things often need large bodies to hide inside. Dr. Hayes rubbed a hand over his mouth either to hide a smile or a sigh. Caleb nodded once. That seems fair. June's eyes narrowed. Do not try to be charming. I am not. Good. You are not very good at it right now. She moved toward the stairs at the back of the shop. Stay here. Caleb did. Every instinct in him screamed to follow. She was upstairs. Mara was upstairs, his wife, his child, the woman he had crossed half the coast to find. All of her was within steps, and he stood in a bookstore smelling of cinnamon while an old cat watched him like a disappointed judge. Above him, footsteps creaked. Low voices. A silence. Then Mara's voice, muffled but unmistakable. No. Caleb closed his eyes. June's voice came softer. I will not make you see him. More silence. Dr. Hayes stood beside Caleb but did not look at him. Breathe, the doctor said. Caleb realized he was not. Upstairs, Mara said something he could not catch. Her voice cracked on the last word. June answered. Then footsteps again. The older woman appeared at the top of the stairs. She will give you 5 minutes, June said. If she says leave, you leave before the word finishes leaving her mouth. Caleb nodded. He climbed the stairs like a man walking toward sentencing. The apartment above the bookstore was small and warm. Books lined one wall. A faded blue sofa sat beneath a window facing the harbor. There was a tiny kitchen, a braided rug, a rocking chair with a blanket folded over the back, and a kettle steaming on the stove. Mara stood near the window. She wore gray leggings and an oversized cream sweater. Her hair was shorter than it had been 4 days ago, cut to her shoulders in loose waves as if she had taken scissors to the old version of herself. Her face was pale, too pale. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. One hand rested protectively over the swell of her stomach. The sight of her nearly brought him to his knees. She was so visibly pregnant that shame moved through him like a blade. How had he not seen? How had he lived beside her and failed to see the life beneath her heart? Mara's eyes locked on his. Whatever softness he might have imagined was not there, only shock, then fear, then anger. "No closer," she said. Caleb stopped immediately. His hands remained visible at his sides. "I won't." The room held them. June stood near the kitchen. Dr. Hayes remained by the door. Neither pretended not to listen. Mara looked at Caleb as if confirming he was real and not some nightmare that had learned to follow her. "How did you find me? I hired someone." Her mouth twisted. "Of course you did. I needed to know you were alive. You needed." The words landed hard because she was right. Caleb bowed his head. "Yes, I needed. I am sorry." Her eyes sharpened. "Do not stand there and use that voice. What voice? The one that sounds wounded. You do not get to be the wounded one in this room." He looked up. "You're right." Mara's hand tightened on her stomach. "I was careful, I know. I paid cash, I changed buses, I cut my hair. I turned off my phone, I did everything I could to make sure you could not pull me back into that life. I know. And you still came." "Yes." Her laugh was small and bitter. "Because Caleb Maddox does not lose things." "No," he said quietly. "Because Caleb Maddox lost the only thing that mattered and did not understand it until she left." Mara flinched, not softened, flinched. "Do not make this romantic." He swallowed. "I won't. You do not get to turn my escape into your love story. I know. Stop saying that." His mouth closed. Silence filled the apartment. Mara's breathing was uneven. Dr. Hayes noticed. Caleb saw him notice and hated that he had learned to read enemy movements better than he had learned to read his wife's pain. Mara looked at June. "I want him gone." Caleb nodded once, though it tore through him. He took one step back. "Doctor," Hayes spoke gently. "Mara, before he goes, we need to discuss your care plan." Her face changed. Not fear this time. Exhaustion. "Sam, I know, but I told you we needed resources this clinic does not have. I am not taking his money." June stepped closer. "Honey, no." Mara's voice shook. "I know how this works. First it is money, then it is conditions. Then it is a car outside. Then it is a doctor he chose. Then it is a room I cannot leave and people telling me it is for my own good." Caleb felt every word like a sentence passed against him. He spoke carefully. "You choose everything." Mara turned back to him. "I said do not use that voice." He nodded. "Then I will say it plainly. I have no right to make decisions for you. I have no right to ask you to trust me. Dr. Hayes can use anything I have if it helps you. You never have to speak to me. You never have to see me. You never have to thank me. I will not put my name on it." Mara stared at him, searching for the trap. There had always been a trap before. A condition. A debt. A Maddox hand closing around a throat while calling it help. "What do you want?" she asked. The honest answer was terrible in its size. He wanted to go back in time. He wanted to erase a ballroom. He wanted to burn every rose in the Bellevue Grand. He wanted to kneel at her feet and lay his empire there like a dead animal. He wanted his wife to look at him without fear. He said the only thing he had a right to say. "I want you to survive." Her eyes filled. She looked away quickly, angry at the tears before they could fall. "You should have wanted that before." "Yes." The word broke in his throat. Mara wiped her cheek with the heel of her hand. "You called me decoration." Caleb closed his eyes. "I did." "You called me fragile." "Yes." "You said I was not strong enough to carry your name while I was carrying your child." His eyes opened. "I did." Why no accusation had ever frightened him like that one. He looked at the floor between them. "Because I was cruel. Because I was arrogant. Because I let my mother turn my fear of weakness into a weapon. Because it was easier to call you fragile than admit I had become someone you could not reach." Mara's lips parted slightly. She had expected excuses. He could see it. He hated himself for teaching her to expect them. June watched him from near the kitchen with her arms crossed. Dr. Hayes checked Mara's pulse at her wrist. She allowed it, though her eyes stayed on Caleb. "You need to leave," she said. Caleb nodded. "I will. I mean Cape Wren." His chest tightened. Dr. Hayes's hand paused. June drew in a breath. Caleb forced himself not to react too quickly, not to argue, not to step forward. "If that is what you need, I will go." Mara's face trembled. Maybe because she had not expected him to agree. Maybe because part of her wanted him gone and part of her was too tired to carry survival alone. Dr. Hayes said, "Mara, medically, I need someone with immediate access to transport and resources." "I do not like saying that any more than you like hearing it. I have you. You have me, and I have a clinic with one cardiac monitor that complains when it is plugged in. If your pressure spikes at 2 in the morning, if you go into early labor, if your heart rhythm changes, I need options." Mara looked at him with betrayal in her eyes. "You said this was my choice." "It is," Hayes said. "I am giving you the truth so you can make it." June moved beside Mara and took her free hand. "No one is asking you to go back to him, honey." Mara shook her head. "You do not understand. Men like Caleb do not have to ask. The world just moves around them until you realize you are standing exactly where they wanted you." Caleb spoke from near the door. "Then set the rules." Mara's gaze snapped to his. "What set the rules? I will follow them." "You think rules stop men like you?" "No," he said. "But maybe consequences do." She studied him. For the first time since he entered the room, fear receded enough for anger to stand alone. "You can stay in town," she said slowly. "Not here. Not near this building unless Dr. Hayes calls you. You do not come to my appointments unless I ask. You do not send gifts. You do not send messages through June or Nora or anyone else. You do not follow me. You do not have people watch me. You do not speak to me in public unless I speak first." "I understand." Her eyes flashed. "I am not done." He went silent. "You do not call me your wife to anyone in this town like it gives you rights. You do not call my baby a Maddox heir. You do not let your mother within 1,000 miles of us. You do not make promises you cannot keep just because they sound pretty." Caleb absorbed each rule like he was being given a map out of hell. "All right. And if I tell you to leave Cape Wren, you leave?" His voice was quiet. "Yes." Mara watched him for a long time. Then she looked at Dr. Hayes. "Set up the medical plan. Use what you need, but I make every decision." "Yes," Hayes said. She turned to June. "I need to sit down." Caleb took one step without thinking. Mara's eyes cut to him. He stopped. June helped her to the sofa. That was when Caleb understood the true shape of his punishment. Not that Mara hated him. He deserved that. Not that she might never forgive him. He deserved that, too. It was seeing her need help and knowing his hands had become the last ones she wanted. He left without another word. Downstairs, the bookstore cat hissed at him from the armchair. June followed him to the door. "You did better than I expected," she said. Caleb almost laughed. "That cannot have been difficult." No, it was not. Rain misted the windows behind her. Warm light touched the silver in her hair. "She will test you," June said. "I know. No, you do not. She will push because part of her needs proof you will not push back harder. She will be cold because warmth has cost her. She will refuse what she needs because needing people has hurt her. If you make her pain about your guilt, I will throw you out myself." Caleb nodded. "Good," she said. "There is a motel at the edge of town, Harbor Rest. Martha runs it. She will overcharge you because she dislikes your coat. I can afford it. That is exactly why she will do it." He opened the door, then stopped. "June." She waited. "Thank you for taking her in." June's face softened for the first time, but not toward him. "She knocked on my door during a storm with one suitcase and the eyes of a woman trying not to die before morning. Taking her in was not kindness. It was common sense." Caleb stepped into the mist. The door closed behind him. He stood on the sidewalk beneath the bookstore window and looked up once. A shadow moved behind the curtain. He did not wave. He walked away. The Harbor Rest Motel sat beside a two-pump gas station and a closed seafood shack with a painted lobster on the sign. Caleb rented a room from Martha, a woman in purple glasses who indeed charged him too much and gave him towels the texture of sandpaper. The room had brown carpet, a bed that dipped in the middle, a heater that coughed before working, and a painting of a sailboat that seemed deeply unhappy to be there. Caleb sat on the edge of the bed and looked around. In Philadelphia, he owned a penthouse with marble floors, a private elevator, and glass walls overlooking a city that had learned to fear him. In Cape Wren, he had a motel room that smelled faintly of bleach and old coffee. It felt appropriate. His phone rang just after midnight. "Cole." Caleb answered. "Tell me." "Vivian is moving." Caleb closed his eyes. How lawyers? "She is asking questions about Mara's mental state, medical competency, whether you were aware she traveled while pregnant. She is trying to shape a story before you do." Caleb stood. "What story? That Mara is unstable, that she concealed a pregnancy, that she fled without cause, that the child needs protection from her poor judgment." The room went very still. Caleb's voice lowered. "Destroy it, violently or legally, legally." Cole paused. "That answer still sounds wrong from you. Get used to it. I have Gerald filing injunctions and tightening every trust. Vivian no longer has standing in the foundation or family companies. But she still has friends, Caleb. Old ones. Judges who liked Patrick. Donors who think Vivian is the last respectable Maddox. Then remind them respectability is expensive when purchased from me. That sounds more familiar." "Cole, I know. Legally." Caleb looked toward the motel window. Across the parking lot, rain silvered the asphalt. "She does not get near Mara. She will try. Then she loses every clean thing she has left." Cole was quiet. "You saw Mara, yes. How is she?" Caleb sat down slowly. "Afraid of me." Cole did not soften the truth. "She should be. I know. And the baby a girl, you told me that." "I know." Caleb's throat tightened. "It still feels impossible." Cole let the silence sit for a moment. "What is her name? Mara has not told me. Maybe she has not chosen. Maybe she has, and I do not have the right to know." Cole exhaled. "You sound different. I am different." "No, you are grieving. Difference comes later." The words landed with more accuracy than Caleb wanted. "Hold Philadelphia," he said. "I am trying. Try harder. There he is." Caleb almost smiled. Almost. After the call, he did not sleep. At dawn, he walked to the harbor. Fishermen were already moving along the docks, loading gear, checking lines, speaking in short phrases shaped by cold and routine. No one welcomed him. No one told him to leave. A few looked over. Most went back to work. That became his first lesson in Cape Wren. He was not important here. He bought coffee from Nora, who gave it to him in a paper cup and said, "Do not make me regret letting you breathe in my diner." He nodded and left a 20 on the counter. She pushed it back. "Coffee is $2. Keep the change." I said coffee is $2. Caleb placed $2 beside the register. Nora took it. The second lesson came that afternoon when Dr. Hayes found him sitting on a bench near the clinic. "I need equipment," the doctor said, handing him a list. Caleb read it once. "Done. You have not seen the cost." I said done. Hayes frowned. "Mr. Maddox, Caleb, I am not impressed by fast answers. I am impressed by correct ones. Some of this requires approvals. Some requires transport. Some requires staff training. If you throw money at it without structure, you create confusion, and confusion kills patients." Caleb folded the list carefully. "Then tell me the correct way." The doctor looked surprised, only for a second. Then he nodded. They spent 2 hours in the clinic office making calls. Caleb spoke little. He listened. When Hayes needed a specialist in Portland, Caleb connected him with one through legal channels, not pressure. When the clinic needed a new cardiac monitor, Caleb arranged delivery under a medical grant Gerald created before sunset. When Hayes mentioned emergency transport, Caleb funded a standby contract with a medevac company, but signed nothing that gave him authority over Mara's movement. Every document named Dr. Samuel Hayes as medical coordinator. None named Caleb as decision-maker. That evening, June found Caleb behind the bookstore with a toolbox. The back steps had a loose railing. He had noticed it when leaving the night before. If Mara used those stairs, if she slipped, if one more preventable thing happened because he had failed to see what was in front of him, he would tear the building apart with his hands. June stood with a paper bag tucked under one arm. "What are you doing, fixing the railing?" "Did anyone ask you to know? Then why are you doing it?" He tightened a screw. "Because it is loose." "That is not an answer." That is an observation. Caleb paused. He had ordered men killed with less questioning than this town put into basic carpentry. He looked up. Because she might need it. Because if I ask, she will say no. Because if I pay someone, she will know. Because this is something my hands can do without cornering her. June watched him. Then she set the bag on the step. Sandwich. Turkey. Nora made too much and claimed she would throw it away if I did not take it. Caleb looked at the bag. Did Mara send it? June gave him a look. No, and if you ask hopeful questions like that often, I will become mean. He accepted the sandwich. Thank you. June looked at the railing. You are doing that wrong. Caleb stared at her. She took the screwdriver from his hand. Move. He did. For 20 minutes, June showed him how to fix a railing properly, while Caleb Maddox, who had once negotiated a union strike with 3 words and a stare, held screws in his palm and listened. Upstairs, behind a curtain, Mara watched. She told herself she was only checking the street. She told herself the baby had kicked and made her stand. She told herself many things. Caleb never looked up. That was why she kept watching. Days passed. Cape Wren did not welcome Caleb, but it began to use him. Owen's delivery truck got stuck in mud behind the diner, and Caleb helped push it free in the rain. Nora's nephew needed someone tall enough to replace a broken sign over the counter, and Caleb stood on a ladder while half the diner waited for him to fall. The church pantry needed crates moved from a storage shed, and June volunteered him before he could refuse. He did each task without asking if Mara had heard. She had. Cape Wren made sure of it. Small towns did not gossip quietly. They simply pretended gossip was weather. Mara learned that Caleb had paid $2 for coffee after Nora rejected his 20. She learned that he had sat in Dr. Hayes' office for hours and signed nothing that gave him control. She learned that he slept at the Harbor Rest Motel and ate alone. She learned that he had left his security behind. She learned because June had no intention of letting her hide from facts. He is trying, June said one evening, placing tea beside Mara on the small kitchen table. Mara stared out at the dark harbor. Trying does not erase. I did not say it did. He was always good at effort when he wanted something. June sat across from her. What does he want Mara's hand moved over her stomach? I do not know. Yes, you do. Mara looked at her. June's face was gentle but steady. He wants you. He wants the baby. He wants to become the kind of man who deserves to want either of you. Those are not the same thing. Mara swallowed hard. I hate that I still know when he is tired. June said nothing. I saw him this morning outside the clinic. He was sitting in that ugly coat with coffee in his hand, looking like he had not slept since 2018. That sounds accurate. I should not care. No, June said. You should not have been put in a position where caring hurts. Mara closed her eyes. The baby shifted beneath her palm. I am so tired, I know. Sometimes I think if I let him help, it means Vivian was right, that I am weak. June reached across the table and covered Mara's hand. Needing help is not weakness. Being forced to beg for it from people who withheld it is the wound. Mara's eyes filled. She hated crying now. She hated how quickly tears came. She hated that her body, once private and obedient, had become a battlefield full of alarms. A sharp pain moved across her lower back. She sucked in a breath. June stood immediately. Mara, it's fine. Do not lie to old women. We invented it. The pain eased. Mara breathed through it. I'm fine. June picked up the phone. I am calling Sam. June. I am calling Sam. Dr. Hayes arrived within 15 minutes. He checked her pressure, listened to the baby's heartbeat, and asked questions in a calm voice that made fear easier to hold. Caleb did not come upstairs. Mara noticed. She hated that too. Later, Dr. Hayes stepped outside and found Caleb standing across the street beneath the diner awning, soaked at the shoulders from rain. I told you not to come unless called, Hayes said. June texted Nora. Nora told Owen. Owen looked at me like someone had died. I came to the street, not the building. Hayes studied him. Her pressure is high but stable. No labor. She needs rest. Caleb's face changed in the dim light. Relief first, then pain. Thank you. She asked if you were downstairs. Caleb went still. What did you say, the truth? That you were outside? What did she say? She said good. Caleb nodded once. Hayes almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Go sleep, the doctor said. I cannot. Then pretend. It is a skill men like you usually master early. Caleb looked up at the apartment window. Does she hate me? Dr. Hayes followed his gaze. Yes. The answer was merciful because it was clean. Caleb took it like he had learned to take everything in Cape Wren, without argument. The next morning, Vivian called from a blocked number. Caleb answered because Cole had warned him she was escalating. Her voice came through smooth, stripped of any pretend warmth. You are hiding in Maine while your empire bleeds. Caleb stood outside the motel watching gulls circle above the gas station. Good morning to you too. Do not mock me. I learned from you. You think this little performance proves something sleeping in a motel, playing nursemaid, carrying guilt like a candle. It is embarrassing. Then stop watching. You forget who I know. No, I am counting on you remembering who I know. A pause. Vivian's voice sharpened. Mara is unstable. She concealed a pregnancy from her husband. She fled across state lines while medically compromised. Any reasonable court would question her judgment. Caleb's hand tightened around the phone. You will not use the courts against her. She is carrying my grandchild. She is carrying her daughter. Our blood, her body. Silence. Then Vivian said, she has made you vulgar. No, she made me honest. You cannot protect that woman from what she is. Weakness does not become strength because you pity it. Caleb looked toward the road that led into town. I have seen weakness, Mother. I saw it in a ballroom when I needed strangers to laugh so I could feel powerful. I saw it in my study when I let you speak for me because thinking for myself meant admitting I was afraid. I saw it every time I called control love. Vivian's breath shook with anger. Your father would be ashamed. My father is dead. I am done sacrificing the living to impress ghosts. You will regret cutting me out. No, Caleb said. I regret letting you in. He ended the call. This time he did not throw the phone. That afternoon a package arrived at the lantern page. It was large, wrapped in brown paper with no sender name. June found it outside the back door and narrowed her eyes as if it might explode. Mara sat at the kitchen table upstairs, wrapped in a blanket, while June dragged the package inside with help from Owen. What is it? Mara asked. June looked at the careful handwriting on the small card. I can guess. Mara's face closed. I told him no gifts. June opened the card first. Then she handed it to Mara. Mara, this is not a gift. It is an apology my hands could understand. If you do not want it, June can burn it, sell it, or give it away. I will not ask. Caleb Mara stared at the note. Then Owen cut away the paper. Inside was a crib. Not the kind Vivian would have chosen, not white lacquer, not carved with family initials, not imported, not grand, not made to impress guests in a nursery photographed for magazines. This crib was simple wood, sanded smooth, warm in color, with slightly uneven edges that showed where human hands had worked too carefully and still not perfectly enough. The rails were strong, the corners soft. At the foot, barely visible, a small bird had been carved into the wood. A wren. Mara did not speak. June watched her. Owen cleared his throat. I can take it downstairs. Mara touched the rail with 2 fingers. The wood was smooth. She imagined Caleb sitting alone somewhere, sleeves rolled, hands that had signed death warrants, learning how to shape something safe for a child. Her throat tightened so painfully she had to look away. I told him no gifts, she whispered. June's voice was soft. You did. This is breaking a rule. Yes. Mara closed her eyes. The baby moved beneath her heart. Not a kick this time. A slow turn as if settling closer. Leave it, Mara said. Owen glanced at June. June nodded. They carried the crib to the corner near the window. When it was in place, the apartment looked different, more real, more dangerous, as if hope had taken up space without asking permission. Mara sat on the sofa long after June and Owen went downstairs. Rain touched the window. The crib waited quietly. Across town, Caleb sat outside the Harbor Rest Motel with wood dust still beneath his fingernails and a small cut across his thumb. He did not know if she had kept it. He told himself not knowing was part of the work. Then his phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. No words, just a photo. The crib by the window. Beside it, Mara's hand resting lightly on the rail. Caleb stared at the image until the screen blurred. He did not reply. He did not ask who sent it. He simply bowed his head in the motel parking lot, while the cold Maine rain fell around him, and for the first time since Mara left, the silence did not feel completely empty. The photograph stayed open on Caleb's phone long after the screen dimmed. The crib by the window. Mara's hand on the rail. Not forgiveness, not even close, but proof that something he had made had been allowed to remain in the room where his daughter would sleep. Caleb did not know what to do with that kind of mercy. It was too small to hold and too large to survive without. So he did nothing. That had become the hardest thing. Old Caleb would have sent flowers. He would have sent a note. He would have appeared at the bookstore with a speech sharpened overnight. He would have tried to turn one quiet opening into a door. This. Caleb put the phone in his coat pocket, went back to his motel room, washed the blood and wood dust from his thumb, and sat on the edge of the bed until morning. By the end of the week, Cape Wren had settled into a tense rhythm around Mara's condition. Dr. Hayes came twice a day. June kept the bookstore open downstairs and pretended not to hover. Nora sent soup in jars and claimed she had overcooked again. Owen fixed the loose window in the upstairs kitchen. The old fisherman began parking closer to the lantern page after dark, not in a way anyone could call guarding, but in a way everyone understood. Caleb remained at the edges. He sat in the last pew at the church pantry meeting because June had asked for help moving boxes. He carried groceries up the back stairs only when Mara was at the clinic. He paid for the emergency medical equipment through the grant and never stepped inside to see it installed. Sometimes Mara saw him from the apartment window. He was smaller in Cape Wren. Not physically. Caleb Maddox could never truly look small. But the town had taken away the stage that made men fear him. Here he stood in line for coffee. Here Nora corrected his change. Here June told him when he was holding a hammer wrong. Here Dr. Hayes spoke to him like a difficult but trainable animal. And he listened. That unsettled Mara more than his power ever had. One afternoon she sat in the rocking chair beside the crib, one hand resting over the baby while rain moved softly down the glass. The carved little wren at the foot of the crib faced the window as if waiting for a sky wide enough to enter. June came upstairs with fresh towels. "You have been staring at that crib for 20 minutes. I hate it," Mara said. June folded a towel. "No, you do not. I hate what it does. That sounds more honest." Mara pressed her lips together. "It makes him look gentle." June placed the towels on the shelf. "Maybe it shows he is capable of gentleness." "Capable is not safe." "No, it is not." Mara looked at the crib again. "I loved him before he became cruel." June sat on the sofa across from her. Maybe he was always capable of both. The truth of that sat between them. Mara wanted a cleaner answer. A villain, a victim, a door closed forever. But memory would not obey her. It kept bringing back the man from the museum, the rooftop proposal, the flowers wrapped in brown paper, the way Caleb once touched her as if the world ended at her skin. Then it brought back the ballroom. His voice, more than decoration. Mara closed her eyes. "I cannot survive loving the wrong version of him again." June's voice softened. "Then do not. Let him become whoever he becomes. You keep becoming yourself." Before Mara could answer, a sharp pressure tightened across her stomach. She froze. June noticed immediately. "Mara, it's fine." The pressure deepened, wrapping around her back like an iron band. Mara gripped the arms of the rocking chair. June was already moving. "Do not say fine. I am calling Sam. It's too early. That is not a medical argument." The pain released after 40 seconds, leaving Mara breathless and sweating. June put a hand on her shoulder. Mara looked toward the crib. Her voice came out small. "I'm scared." June knelt in front of her. "I know, honey, I'm not ready. No one ever is." Dr. Hayes arrived 15 minutes later. He checked Mara's pressure, listened to the baby, asked about the pain, then grew quiet in a way Mara had learned to fear. What she asked. "It may be nothing. It may be your body warning us about what he removed the stethoscope from his ears, that we are running out of room to wait." Mara looked away. "Do not call him." Dr. Hayes did not pretend not to know who she meant. "I am not calling Caleb unless I need to. And if you need to," his face was tired and kind, "then I will call him because my job is to keep you alive, not protect either of you from hard feelings." That night the wind changed. It came in low from the water, pushing fog against the windows and making the old bookstore creak in its bones. By sunset, the radio was speaking in calm, serious voices about a coastal storm moving faster than predicted. By 8, rain hit the glass hard enough to sound like thrown gravel. At the motel, Caleb stood outside under the narrow awning, watching the sky over Cape Wren bruise darker by the minute. His phone buzzed. "Cole." "Tell me you are indoors," Cole said. "I am under an awning." "That is not indoors. What do you need? Vivian filed an emergency motion in Pennsylvania." Caleb went still. "For what? Access to medical information? She is claiming concern for the unborn child and alleging Mara may be refusing appropriate care." Caleb's grip tightened around the phone. "She knows where Mara is?" "Not exactly, but she knows Maine. She has people calling hospitals. Stop it. Gerald is handling it. Legally." Caleb stared through the rain toward the dark road into town. "If she comes here, she will not get close without me knowing. Cole, I know. No guns unless someone makes it unavoidable." Caleb almost smiled despite the storm. "You are learning." "No, I am suffering." A flash of lightning lit the motel lot white. Thunder followed close behind. Cole's voice sharpened. "That storm near you. Yes, go inside." Caleb looked toward town again. "I will." He did not. At 2:11 in the morning, his phone rang. "Dr. Hayes." Caleb answered before the second ring. "It's Mara," Hayes said. "Everything in Caleb stopped. She's in labor. There is bleeding. Her pressure is high. I need transport to Portland now." Caleb was already moving. "The helicopter grounded unless they can find a landing window. Wind is too strong. I funded a standby team." "You did. They cannot fly through a wall of weather. Where is she, bookstore? I'm coming." "Caleb." He stopped with his hand on the motel door. Hayes's voice cut through the rain. "You do not take over when you get here." Caleb closed his eyes for one beat. "I know." He drove through streets shining black with water wipers fighting and losing against the storm. Twice branches scraped the side of the car. Once standing water pulled at the tires near the harbor road. He kept both hands on the wheel and forced himself to slow down because arriving dead would not help anyone. The lantern page glowed like a ship in bad weather. Lights burned upstairs. June's truck was parked crooked by the curb. Owen stood outside in a raincoat, waving Caleb toward the back entrance. "She's upstairs," Owen shouted over the wind. Caleb ran. Inside the apartment had become a battlefield of towels, medical bags, and fear. June knelt beside Mara on the floor near the sofa. Dr. Hayes was crouched at her other side, checking her pulse. Mara's face was pale and slick with sweat, her hair stuck to her temples. One hand gripped June's wrist, the other pressed hard against her stomach. When she saw Caleb, panic flashed across her face. "You promised," she gasped. Caleb stopped at the doorway, soaked and shaking. "I know. You promised you would not come unless I asked." Dr. Hayes called. "I did not." The words hurt because they were true. Caleb lowered himself slowly to one knee, still several feet away. "I will leave if you tell me to." Another contraction seized her. Mara cried out and curled forward. June held her steady while Dr. Hayes spoke low and firm. "Breathe, Mara. In through the nose. Good. Again." Caleb's hands clenched into fists against his thighs. Every instinct tore at him. Go to her, hold her, fix it, command the room until the world obeyed. He stayed where he was. When the pain eased, Mara looked at him, breathing hard. "Do not make decisions for me. I won't. Do not let them take her from me. No one is taking her. Do not choose the baby over me because she is a Maddox." Caleb's face broke. "No." Mara stared at him. He shook his head once, voice rough. "If anyone asks me to choose, I choose you. Not because she matters less. Because you are not a vessel. You are Mara." June closed her eyes briefly. Dr. Hayes looked at Caleb once, then returned to the monitor. Mara's lips trembled. "You should have known that before." "Yes." A gust of wind slammed rain against the window so hard the glass shuddered. Dr. Hayes stood. "We cannot do this here." Mara's eyes widened. "Sam, I know, but you are bleeding, your pressure is climbing, and the baby's heart rate is not where I want it. We need Portland. The road's bad. The helicopter, I'm trying." Caleb rose. "What do you need?" Hayes pointed toward the window without looking at him. "A landing zone. Lights. The high school field is the best chance if the wind drops for even 5 minutes." Caleb pulled out his phone. No signal. No. Damn it. Owen appeared at the door. Cell towers are spotty. Landline downstairs still works. Caleb looked at Mara. I am going downstairs. I am not leaving the building. She nodded once, barely. He ran. Within minutes, Cape Wren began moving. Nora called fishermen. Owen called the volunteer fire chief. June called the high school custodian, who called his brother, who had keys to the field gate. Trucks rolled through rain toward the school headlights, cutting white tunnels through the storm. Men who had barely spoken to Caleb all week drove into the dark because Mara needed a place to land. Caleb stood at the bookstore counter with the landline pressed to his ear, speaking to the medevac coordinator. Tell your pilot there will be lights. The voice on the other end crackled. Wind gusts are still above safe landing range. What range do you need? A pause. Lower than this. Caleb shut his eyes. Old Caleb would have threatened the man's job, his pension, his family. New Caleb gripped the counter and asked, What can we do to give him a chance? The coordinator gave instructions. Clear debris, mark the field, keep vehicles angled away from the landing path. Have medical team ready to load fast. Wait for the wind pocket. Caleb repeated everything to Owen, who ran back into the storm. Then Caleb went upstairs. Mara was on the sofa now, June behind her, Dr. Hayes adjusting an IV line with steady hands. Mara's breathing was ragged. Her eyes found Caleb as he entered. They are trying, he said. Another contraction came. Mara reached blindly, and this time her hand found his. Caleb froze. Then he moved to her side and let her grip him as hard as she needed. Her nails dug into his skin. Good, he whispered. That's good. Hurt me, I can take it. A sound broke out of her half-sob, half-laugh, swallowed by pain. You always say the wrong thing. I know, you're doing it again. I know, stop saying that. I'm trying. Her grip tightened. The contraction passed. For a moment they were both still, her hand trapped inside his, the storm raging outside, June crying silently behind them while pretending not to. Mara opened her eyes. I don't want to die angry. Caleb bowed his head over her hand. Then be angry tomorrow. I might not get tomorrow. You will. Her eyes sharpened despite the pain. Do not lie to me. He looked at her. The hardest truth of his life sat between them. I don't know, he said. I don't know if you get tomorrow. I don't know if I get to be forgiven. I don't know if our daughter will ever know me as anything but the man who hurt her mother. But I know you are not alone tonight. I know I love you. And I know I should have said that better when love could have protected you instead of arriving late. Mara's face crumpled. She turned away, but she did not release his hand. The call came 10 minutes later. The helicopter had a window. 5 minutes, maybe less. Everything became movement. Owen and 2 firefighters carried Mara down the stairs on a stretcher, while June held an umbrella that turned inside out before they reached the sidewalk. Caleb walked beside Mara, one hand on the rail, not touching unless she reached. She did reach when the wind hit her. He took her hand. At the high school field truck, headlights blazed through rain. The storm tore at coats and hair. Dr. Hayes shouted instructions over the roar of wind. The helicopter appeared as a trembling light in the sky. Then sound, then force descending like something fighting God for permission. Mara's stretcher rolled across wet grass. Caleb bent close. I am here. Her eyes opened. For once, she whispered. It wounded him. It steadied her. He deserved both. The flight to Portland was a blur of noise, oxygen monitors, and Dr. Hayes shouting numbers to the flight nurse. Caleb sat strapped across from Mara, soaked to the skin, watching every flicker of her face, as if attention alone could keep her alive. At the hospital, doors opened. People rushed. Bright lights swallowed her. A doctor stopped Caleb at the entrance to surgery. We are taking her in now. Save her. We will do everything we can for both patients. Caleb stepped closer, voice low and clear. No. Listen to me. You save Mara. You treat my daughter as precious because she is. But Mara is not a container. She is not secondary. If a choice comes, you save my wife. The doctor held his gaze, then nodded. We understand. Mara, already being wheeled away, turned her head slightly. She had heard. Her eyes met Caleb's for 1 second. Then the doors closed. The waiting room had beige chairs, bad coffee, and a vending machine humming like it had no respect for grief. Caleb stood because sitting felt impossible. June arrived an hour later with wet hair and Mara's bag clutched to her chest. Dr. Hayes came out once changed out of his soaked coat and disappeared again behind swinging doors. Cole called 3 times. Caleb answered none of them. Then Vivian arrived. She came through the hospital corridor in a gray coat, hair perfect despite the storm, 2 lawyers behind her like shadows. June stood at once. Caleb turned slowly. Vivian stopped when she saw his face. "Do not," he said. "I came for my family." "No, you came for access." Her eyes flicked toward the surgery doors. "How is the child?" June made a sound of disgust. Caleb stepped between Vivian and the hallway. "Mara is in surgery, and the baby Mara is in surgery," he repeated. Vivian's mouth tightened. "You are emotional." "Yes?" The answer seemed to strike her harder than anger would have. Caleb moved closer. "You taught me that emotion was weakness because you were terrified of feeling anything you could not control. I believed you. I used your fear like scripture. And I almost lost my wife because of it." One of the lawyers cleared his throat. Mrs. Maddox has filed an emergency petition regarding—" Caleb did not look at him. "Cole Mercer has every document needed to ruin your firm by breakfast if you finish that sentence inside this hospital." The lawyer shut his mouth. Vivian's voice lowered. "You would choose her over your mother." Caleb looked at the woman who had raised him, shaped him, sharpened him, and nearly hollowed him out. "I choose the family I almost destroyed." Vivian's eyes brightened with something like hatred. "That woman made you weak." Caleb shook his head. "No. She showed me I already was." A nurse appeared at the end of the hall. Mr. Maddox. Caleb turned. The room disappeared except for her face. "Your daughter has been delivered. She is alive. She is small, but she is breathing with assistance." June covered her mouth. Caleb could not speak. The nurse continued. "Your wife is still critical. The cardiac team is working. Alive." Both words existed separately. Daughter, alive, wife, critical. Caleb gripped the back of a chair until the plastic creaked. Vivian took one step forward. "I want to see the baby." Caleb turned. "No, she is my granddaughter. She is Mara's daughter." "And yours?" "Yes," Caleb said, "which is why you will never teach her that love is something to earn by bleeding quietly." Vivian stared at him. Security arrived without Caleb calling. Maybe June had. Maybe Dr. Hayes. Maybe hospitals knew a storm when it walked in wearing pearls. Vivian left with her lawyers, her back straight, her kingdom shrinking behind every step. Hours passed. Morning came gray and wet beyond the hospital windows. At 8:42 a surgeon entered. Caleb stood. June stood with him. The surgeon looked tired but not defeated. She made it through surgery. Caleb's knees nearly gave. June caught his arm. The surgeon continued. "She is not out of danger. The next 24 hours matter." Her heart took significant strain. "But she is alive." Caleb covered his face with both hands. No sound came at first. Then one breath, broken, human. Mara woke 2 days later in a room full of soft machine sounds. Her throat hurt. Her chest ached. Her body felt split open and sewn back together by strangers. For a moment she did not know where she was. Then she heard a tiny cry. She turned her head. Caleb sat across the room, not beside the bed. His beard had grown in dark along his jaw. His clothes were wrinkled. His eyes were red. In his arms was a small bundle wrapped in a hospital blanket. He looked terrified to move. Mara's voice came out rough. "Is she—" Caleb stood carefully. "She's here." A nurse helped place the baby against Mara's chest. Mara looked down. The child was impossibly small. A soft pink mouth, dark hair, tiny fingers curled against the blanket as if holding on to life by instinct and stubbornness. Mara began to cry. Caleb stayed back. She noticed. After a long moment she looked at him. "Did you hold her, yes? Were you afraid, yes? Good." A weak laugh moved through her, then became a wince. Caleb stepped forward, then stopped himself. Mara saw it. "What did you name her?" he asked. I waited. His eyes lifted. Mara looked down at the baby. "Grace." Caleb's face changed. "Mara, not because everything is forgiven, I know." She looked at him. "Do you?" He nodded. "Grace is not forgetting. Grace is what I need if I am going to keep living without letting what happened turn me into Vivian." Caleb closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, tears stood there without shame. "She is beautiful." "She looks like you," Mara said. "I am sorry." This time Mara smiled. Small, exhausted, real enough to hurt. "She has my stubbornness. Thank God." The weeks that followed were not easy. Mara returned to Cape Wren with Grace in a car driven by June, not Caleb. Caleb followed 2 cars behind. He moved from the motel to a small rented cottage near the harbor because the motel heater had finally died, and Martha declared she was not running a charity for tragic men with expensive coats. He saw Grace when Mara allowed it. At first that meant 20 minutes at June's kitchen table while Mara watched every movement. Caleb learned to support the baby's head. He learned how to warm a bottle. He learned that newborns made terrifying noises while sleeping. He learned that diapers were engineered to humble, powerful men. He did not ask Mara to come home. He did not call Philadelphia home anymore either. Cole handled what remained of the Maddox operations while lawyers pulled the clean pieces away from the dirty ones. Men tested the docks. Some left, some stayed. Vivian lost board seats donors and eventually the house in Bryn Mawr, though Caleb left her enough money to live comfortably because cruelty no longer interested him as proof of strength. Months passed. Mara healed slowly. Some mornings she hated Caleb with the full force of memory. Some nights she woke from dreams of the ballroom and had to check that her rings were still not on her hand. Some afternoons, she watched him walk Grace along the harbor speaking to the baby, as if explaining the whole world one gull at a time, and felt grief for the man he might have been sooner. One evening in late autumn, Mara found him outside the lantern page, repairing the step June had complained about since spring. Grace slept in a carrier against his chest, one tiny fist resting over his heart. Mara stood in the doorway. "You are holding the screwdriver wrong." Caleb looked up. A slow smile touched his mouth. June said the same thing. June is usually right. I have learned that. The baby stirred. Caleb lowered his voice. "I can bring her up." Mara looked at him in the porch light. The man who had ruled Philadelphia. The man who had broken her heart. The man who had sat across rooms instead of beside her until she invited him closer. "Stay," she said. Caleb went still. Mara stepped aside, leaving the doorway open. "Just for dinner." His eyes lowered for a moment. When he looked back at her, he did not look victorious. He looked grateful. That was why she let him in. 5 years later, Cape Wren still smelled of salt, old books, and rain. Grace Maddox ran down the beach in yellow boots chasing gulls with the fearless joy of a child who had never wondered whether she was wanted. Caleb followed behind her, slower now, laughing when she ordered him to hurry. Mara watched from the porch of the lantern page, a blanket over her knees and a book open in her lap. Her heart still required care. Her body still carried scars. Some memories never vanished. They simply lost the right to command every room. Caleb turned back toward her from the sand. He waited the way he always did now. Mara smiled and nodded. "Go." He ran after their daughter. The wind lifted Grace's laughter across the shore. Mara looked down at her left hand. Years ago, she had left her rings on a pillow as proof of an ending. She still kept them in the cedar box, not as a wound, but as a witness. Some love stories did not survive because nothing broke. Some survived because what broke was finally seen, named, and never again called weakness. Caleb Maddox had once ruled a city. In the end, the only place that saved him was a little blue bookstore by the sea. A woman brave enough to leave, and a daughter named Grace who taught him that legacy was not a name carried forward. It was the love you refused to destroy twice.